Hi everyone, this episode of the RoboCast is sponsored by Robots Ruin My Life. Be sure to check them out using the link at the top of the description, and be sure to use the code RoboCast at checkout for 25% off your order.
I'm Jeff Waters from Team Jackpot, and you're listening to the RoboCast.
Hello, everyone. My name is Steve the American Killjoy, and welcome to the RoboCast with myself, Jevin of Woodrow, and David of Smeg. This feels wrong. Where is Sam?
He's
lost.
Sam is partying with the Monsoon crew, I think.
Yeah.
I think he was going to some sort of concert, or I don't know, but we hope he's having a lovely time.
Yeah, it would be nice if he joined us, but I guess there's more important things than RoboCasting. But in the meantime, there's us, and we also have the lovely Jeff Waters from Jackpot. How you doing, Jeff?
We're doing all right.
It's been a while since we last talked to you. I think it was
I think it must have been season 5.
Yeah, season 5. I think it was 2020. It was the first year you guys were there. So a lot's changed, since you guys, first burst onto the scene, and it was the first year in Vegas, I think.
Or was it? That was still Long Beach. That was the only year I've had to travel for.
Yeah, no, it was the Long Beach. It's been hard to remember some of these old series. I mean, I've actually been watching the old ones go back. It's very funny to see how awkward Chris, Kenny, and Farouk were early on.
We got series 3 on Netflix recently. Gosh,
yeah. It's also funny going back and seeing how crazy it's gotten since then.
Oh yeah, like any bot from now would maybe mop the floor with bots back then, but still,
it was wild watching back the nastiest knockout things and watching the pace of a 2016 fight against something from last year.
It's a different vibe, isn't it? It's definitely a different vibe.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, you have had a couple fights before you met with us, so let's just jump right into it. So your first fight is against Skorpios. So what is the game plan for going into a fight like this against a bot that just doesn't die?
So our main game plan was to play around the new active ground game, whatever you want to call it, the self-rider ground game lifter hybrid thing. It does look a little bit of everything. It's mostly just so it baits them into having to use forks, even if we don't have to use it. So, it gets rid of that whole debate of, do you want to go flat face or do you want to go with ground game? It kind of lets us swap back and forth between the two mid fight. But with Skorpios, we didn't really get to do too much to them. So what happened is, in the rush of the first build of the season, we never battle hardened the self-rider motor.
Oh.
So what happened is Skorpios bent our arm in and our weapon hit it and back drove it really fast. The gearbox didn't break, but it caused the magnets to shatter in the gearbox or in the motor. So it grabbed the stator. Then when it happened again, it just ripped the stator off. So the base plate's still there. The base plate didn't shear. It just twisted the stator coil off of the motor. So that's why we weren't able to self-right. Everything else is perfectly fine. Then we couldn't really do anything. Then on top of that, Skorpios got a belly shot on us, which killed our weapon ESCs.
That'll do it.
Then as a side effect of that fire.
Yeah, beautiful pyrotechnics, which aren't supposed to happen.
Yeah, the fire ended up demagnetizing our motors.
Really?
And we didn't even think of it. So the rest of the season, our weapon is super gimped, and we have no reason. We don't know why.
Yeah, because why would you check that? Why would you check the magnetism of the magnets in your motor?
You'd think everything is fine on it.
Yep.
So that's why you see we can start going into the next fight where I could explain what was going on with the rotator.
Yeah, we can do that. Let's hop on into that one. Let's
see. There's not much to cover in Skorpios. It was 40 seconds.
It was very much over.
It was
quickly,
a quick one, wasn't it?
Yeah. But rotator, we So I can bring up the weapon as we go into that, but for as far as the rotator fight, we were trying our Twin Peaks configuration, which was something we developed for Ribbot because we were like, oh, we're probably going to fight Ribbot this year at some point in the off season we were talking. Then of course we do end up getting Ribbot. But so we tried it's basically our normal wedge, but we get rid of the front system on it. Then we just add the front plates all the way down. So it's still able to deflect the horizontals in the corners, but it's more effective when our weapon actually likes to stay spinning. So it's a lot of our damage that we got in the rotator fight was a result of me fleeing to get the weapon up to speed.
Attempting to get it spinning.
Yeah, so when we got our, what would you call it? We're looking at the robot from the back, the right side front panel got ripped off on the corner because I was trying to flee to get the weapon up to speed. Then after that, our drive chain kept trying to walk off the sprocket because it was kind of tweaked. So that's why you would see us go forward. Also, we'd stop and spin.
So you weren't meaning to do handbrake turns then in the arena. That was
doing
just,
donuts. No.
just damage.
I can do handbrake turns when I want to, but it's if I'm like going, I'm got the weapon at the speed, I'm closing out really fast, and all of a sudden I stop. Yeah, that's not perfect.
Yeah, let's save
Not
the
helpful.
donuts for whenever they race on the strip. I think that's safe.
That's later. That's later.
Yeah.
We have a listener question regarding the first two fights, which comes from that Builder Boy on Discord, who asks, how jarring must it have felt when you lost those first two fights? Obviously, they're the first bracket fights that you've lost in 3 seasons.
Very unfamiliar territory because you guys just tend to whether it's you guys are just bossing it, or you like the fight. Sometimes you're just meant to win a fight, but it's just it's got to be a different feeling coming out of this without a winning record just yet.
Yeah, that was kind of like the upsetting part. Like the first one, like we felt like that was kind of just a we kind of messed up, like we were all kicking ourselves because it was something stupid that we should have looked at.
Yeah.
And that kind of really set the pace for the 2 first fights because the side effect that we had after that first fight were still very relevant in the rotator fight. Because if we had that, if our rider didn't bust, it would have been a compounding butterfly effect, then our weapons wouldn't be, cooked and everything else. And we'd been going in there a little bit more positively. But so after that Skorpios fight, it was kind of just like, let's rebuild it. We figured out what was wrong. We were so busy fixing the self-rider and weapon ESCs that we didn't consider checking the magnetization of the motors. Because that's something that you never really think about. Especially, those motors were fairly old. Like, they made it through the 5 fights of Season 6, or World Championship 6. Then they had the 1 fight with theirs. So that's 7 fights on it. Plus, I think they came out of Tracer.
Yeah.
So
interesting. So not only do we have the Ace, we also have bits from Tracer that have found their way.
Yes.
Jackpot.
The weapon ESCs from World Championship 6 and World Championship 7 were from Tracer. They're proprietary ESCs that Jason developed for his bodyboard company. So it gets him data. Yeah, it gets him data, and they support up to 16S, so it's very convenient.
What a testing ground BattleBots has become for anybody's custom ESCs.
Exactly.
I mean, it's never going to see that kind of pain, hopefully, in the real world.
It shows like the extreme end of what may happen to it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot. What was the MPC? It's a wheelchair motor company, and now, like, after BattleBots, they would keep sending their motors back, and the company keep fixing them and sending them back out. Now they do projects for the military. Like I mean, BattleBots has been a testing ground for companies for a long time. It's always cool to see. So, unfortunately, not a win yet. Maybe one in this episode. We'll see. Unless you've watched the episode, then you already know. So we'll move on to the next bit here, and we have some listener questions for you going into this week. So I'll get right on to those. So for the first one, PBChew18 on Discord asks, what was the design philosophy behind the Twin Peak setup, and why did you use it against Ribbot instead of a traditional wedge? Also, how much glitter is applied to Jackpot before each fight?
So the Twin Peaks we didn't get to use against Ribbot because it kind of got totaled against Rotator.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up just going hard flat face, which we did a flat face setup against Malice at Remars. So we know it works. We know it can take a beating, but we had the diamonds at the time, so they were kind of, they weren't designed to take a horizontal hit like a Blackheart is.
Mhm.
So Blackheart is the 22-inch version of our Heartbreaker weapon. So the main Heartbreaker we run in the wedge is 20 inches, so it clears the throat of the wedge. But the reason we didn't run a traditional wedge against Ribbot is we didn't know if they were going to run the vertical or the horizontal yet, because they were struggling to get the horizontal ready.
Mhm.
So we're like, if we put all the effort into getting the horizontal config going and they show up at the vertical, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's bad for us.
I think we saw you just before this fight actually in the pits, and we had a very similar conversation. You could see the Ribbot team from sort of across the way and just see them trying to get the horizontal doing something, but you had both kind of ready to go and slap them on if you needed to.
Yeah, we kept the front naked and we kept the weapon out, so we were able to lock in really quickly what we wanted. But they were also had both their modules over there and their chassis over there, so like it was literally like within 30 minutes we could have fully swapped to what we wanted to be, both of us.
Yeah, so not only do you need to be
games.
repairable, you need to be easily swappable constantly in BattleBots. It's not anymore that you just can repair anything. It's the fact that you need to be able to swap in any situational armor, any situational weaponry to make sure that you're up against, especially when you're up against Ribbot who play games with everybody. But that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, that's why I envy big horizontals like Malice, Tombstone, Triton. They're like, yeah, it is what it is.
Like,
you show
this
up
is the bot. This is what I have.
This is what it's going to be.
Yep. You got to plan for this.
With Malice, it's a little different because they can add the forks, but that's probably like 30 seconds to work.
Yeah.
To add those.
Most likely, yeah. Jevin, would you like to take the next question?
I can take the next question. What made you decide to add the lifting forks rather than keeping the wedgelets and self-righter from last season? That comes from Jack Shirahai. Oh dear, I'm butchering that name.
Yes,
Jack on Discord.
That one.
We'll go with that.
Thank you for the question.
Yes.
So it's a lifter in name only. It's more of a getting our. Oh, it's a funny way to say that. It's a good way to get us off our face.
Mm-hmm.
Because it scrapes in front of the robot. So if you remember last year, we lost a blip because we got stuck in our face.
Mm-hmm.
Like the rider couldn't do anything because we were stuck, and that's the whole mentality of. So originally it was just adding a little bump in the front. We're like, well, if it's already out there, we might as well add some forks to it and play around some.
A little one arm bandit, as they call it over in the UK. The little arm wasn't just enough to get you guys back over, so you guys have decided to have a little bit of fun. There you go.
Hey, there it is.
Have a little bit more, fun with in the front of your robot. So say, hey, even if your weapon goes down, you still have something that you can, affect the fight with.
So it can lift like 220 pounds dead, but you're never lifting a whole robot, especially with the geometry of that. So you're going to get some type of lever advantage because you're picking it up from the corner. Mm-hmm. So it could lift and do a bunch of stuff. It's not going to do like crazy stuff like Terratops does because our weapon is so far out. It's more of if we're nose to nose and weapon is stopped, it's enough to get him off of us.
And sometimes that's really all you need, just enough to get you back over, get back in the fight, and not get stuck doing the thing.
I think we were talking to who did we have last week?
Matt Spurk.
Of course we did.
No, it seems reasonable last week.
Seems reasonable.
It seems reasonable.
I can't remember if it even
they're
was
all blending.
whatever week it was, we were talking about having a big weapon up front and having that reach, and I think that's what
Reach.
Jackpot does best.
Yes.
That is the main advantage with Jackpot is reach. Like going into like even like the rotator fight, like most of the times or when our weapon was spinning, we were hitting them before they would hit us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things that we hit them, we pop up, then their undercutter doesn't hit.
Mm-hmm. And I remember
But
we
then
were talking. Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And then eventually it falls down and hits. Right?
Yeah.
I need to get better at that.
It all
It was
comes with
Anazolnikov we were
experience.
talking to.
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
talking Ripperoni. Just
Yeah,
remembered.
and we were talking with Diana from Skorpios about how hard it is to fight a robot like Jackpot, where it's just all reach. I mean, you really have to hope and pray that like it doesn't hit something precious.
Yeah, you got to armor up at the front, or else you're in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. David, would you like to take the next question?
Yes, yeah, we've got some quick fire style questions from Sean Peterson on Facebook. First one is poker or Jack Black? Or
Jack
Jack
Black.
Black.
I like Jack Black. Great guy.
You know the thing.
I like Jack Black.
I mean, same.
Great actor.
Same. I'd probably take Jack Black
Love his
over either of those because that way I'm not going to lose money.
I really like that that new one that Jack Black was in the Pixar movie, the one where they're like it's technically like a D&D type universe, but it's like normal life.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it. Oh, what's
Yes.
the name of it?
Oh god, I know what
I'm not
you
much of a
mean.
TV show watcher. I used to be, or a movie watcher rather.
That's all right. He's Bowser at some point next month, so it's all good.
Yeah, we'll remember at some point.
Absolutely.
But no, I like Blackjack a little bit better because there's a little bit more strategy to it. Like if depending on what your first card is, you can hit like do you hit on a 17 type shit? Like there's a very low chance like 17's low.
Mhm.
Like but if you push on it, there's a chance you can break, but there's not a chance that you can win with 17 either.
Yes.
There's more mind going on with Blackjack, I feel like.
I agree.
Yeah, it's and the thing with Blackjack is you're not playing against the other players at the table. It's just you and the dealer. There's no like politics of like what does he have? What does he have? It's just you against the house.
Mhm.
I think the most thing about with Blackjack is like whenever anybody sits down at the table and doesn't know how to play, and then people get impatient, be like, all right, come on, I want to hit. I already know what I'm going to do. Get through your turn. But that's why I'm always worried to sit down at tables in Vegas because I always feel like I'm gonna embarrass myself.
We're not going to comment on your Vegas experience.
I may have made a video poker machine's seat very warm. I'll just say that.
Steve would often pop off to the loo at dinner time, and then he wouldn't be back for a half an hour because he's on
Hey,
the funny machines again.
Yeah.
I was trying to find one that hit, man. And I
got
know
on
how to
David's
play. I know all the math for video poker. I'm one of those people. I know when to hold. I know what to hold and when to hold. It doesn't always let me win.
One
Anyway.
day.
Believe it or not, I've never sat at a poker table.
No, neither have I.
I've been here my whole life.
Really?
I guess that's kind of the whole thing.
That is interesting.
Actually.
You are the Vegas guy, so it's like
Yeah.
you have to have done everything.
We've had a
Yeah.
conversation with Jake Hewitt. Does that count as sort of a bit of poker?
Mm,
Seeing who holds all the cards, or yeah. But anyway,
possibly. So yeah,
David, continue.
yeah.
Yep. So next question was craps or slots. So we're continuing down the
We got a
gambling
theme here.
route.
Slots.
Cool.
Nice and simple.
Slots are good.
And
Definitely.
the petting, the nice
Yeah, that-
tiny one there.
It's kind of a giveaway on that because I have a slot
Which I may or may
machine
not
theme.
have rigged pre-recording to make sure that it was all sevens.
Yeah.
No, I totally got it. I swear.
That's it's kind of a giveaway considering I have a slot machine themed robot and not a crap themed robot.
Yeah, honestly,
Very
Very
true.
true.
be tough to roll the dice and retrieve them each time. I feel like that would be
Yeah,
that would be
exactly.
tricky.
I need like a dice thrower on the robot or something.
You need
Put,
like
put a dice on the lifting arms to just
Yeah.
at the start of the fight.
You need like one of those poppers in the trouble board game, where it's just like bubble,
Yeah.
bubble, bubble. I don't know.
Either that or double dempsey it and just like fire a die at somebody instead.
Shoot a
silly.
die.
It's got more points on it. Might do more damage. Next question is: were you inspired by the Robot Wars robot 13 Black with your feet?
I was more inspired by living here.
Yep.
Like what's a whole like I did look at 13 Black for some like ideas for themes at one point, because we have that big old roulette wheel that we were working on. We never made that weapon. It might come back next year. It's like we had trouble spinning up with this weapon. Imagine spinning up that big old thing.
Yeah, that's to try and that's going to throw off the steering completely when driving that thing around.
It would be very scary though. But no, so like the whole Vegas thing kind of happened. Like, what is something that we can do that's branding that no other team has done yet? And the show wasn't in Vegas yet, so they really loved us bringing the Vegas team. We had the poker chips before everyone else had the poker chips. We had playing card. We went all out that first year. Then the next year moves to Vegas. Now everyone has poker chips and playing cards. You're like, oh man, you're stepping
just
on our
ahead of the curve, Like,
yep, that's it. Trendsetters.
Exactly.
We had more reach.
Yep.
We got there
Literally.
Hey.
Oh boy.
And the last one from Sean Peterson is: what other type of robot would you like to build if you had the opportunity to bring a second entry?
Let's see, because I build a lot in the smaller weight classes.
There's one I'm thinking of in particular that would be a lot of fun, but I don't know how you'd get a 250-pound of it. But
are you talking about Red Rocket?
I am talking about Red Rocket.
Yes. I would leave to figure out.
So it's possible. The limiting factor is hip speed, because it's one of those. As you get bigger, you need you get more surface area, so you get more thrust, but also because you're further out, your tip speed goes up. So you do it really small and do it. It'd be a mess. If I had to do it, it'd be kind of like how Crossfire was. If you ever seen that robot?
Yes, in the KOB, yeah.
Yeah, King of Bots. So Crossfire, I played around with the idea of like a 250 Wumbo, which would be very, very terrifying. Just a horizontal blade floating right about upright height.
I'm sure it'd be fine. Wouldn't do too much damage.
I'm sure that would not destroy the test box ever.
The test box has seen enough crap anyway.
Then I have my 12, which I like, which is kind of like it's kind of almost like a welded beater box. Like, it's behind me. It's up there, but it's tracked, and tracks are cool, but tracks also suck. So
I'm completely flabbergasted about that statement, but also completely agree.
Yeah.
Very uncommon to win BattleBots with tracks. The only one bot that's did it is Bite Force, so it's been a long time since that happened.
His were more chains though, like regular like rubber tracks. He had like magnet tracks, which is why it worked.
So completely different from what you'd normally see. Like, we think tracks, we think like emulsifier tracks, you know what I mean, or like tank, like true tank tracks. But yeah, that would be I'd be curious.
The other thing I'm kind of hung up on where like build another 250 would be I'm kind of hung up on it because I kind of want to build a 30 like it. Is I want to take like my Minibot Supreme Ruler, or it's a bit smaller version of Ace, and put that system on like the front of the SawBlaze. So you go up, and
then hit. Interesting.
Because you don't have to pin them in a corner. You can just grab them anywhere.
That's a nice idea.
I like it.
Quite interesting. This shows, even though BattleBots, you have the one design that's in, the bot designers and the builders are always thinking of things that they could do.
There's always ways to try.
And I add it to my design.
Break the meta, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that was good. We do have one more question.
We do. Yeah.
Our friend of the RoboCast, Rob, Boom Zoom on Discord, asks, what tips do you have for others looking to build competitive robots on a budget?
So a lot of lot of the big budget comes from we don't have to travel, which is it's a lot of, but you travel stipend goes back into the build and all that. But with ours is just kind of the KISS rule, keep it simple. Like there's no we don't have any. Well, we do have fancy ESCs, but they're provided to us out of
right. There's an asterisk here somewhere.
Yeah. Use what you have on hand. Don't go like above like your capabilities.
Right.
Design DFM is very important. If you can, like, even if the materials cost more, if it's cheaper to get it made that way, it's cheaper overall. Like you can use exotic materials, but if you can make it so it's really like the manufacturing side of it's really cheap, like lots of lead. If you have plenty of lead time, you can definitely wheel and deal with people like ZTL and other China shops to get if you do need machine parts. But a lot of it is just kind of design it so you can make it yourself. Like Jackpot's is a slot and tab welded frame, which is trying the cheapest way you can do it until material prices went up recently. But when I was starting that first season, like steel was cheap, everything was like accessible. Like we just use off the shelf bushings. It's nothing custom machined on the first year around. It was just a built on tube, and we kind of just the whole hey, these are cheap and they work. Question mark.
It works for the moment. Let's go with that.
Yes, absolutely.
That first year robot was like there was some witchcraft going on to make sure that thing drove, because it was only like a 3-to-1 gear ratio with a direct drive, a 6384 on 12S with it was 6S. Yeah, it was 6S.
What?
So we had a 12S weapon and a 6S drive on that first season.
That's nuts.
We didn't know what we were doing.
There's a certain level of jank, but I mean, it pulled
you
through.
went undefeated in the very start. So
not only did it have a 3-to-1 gear ratio on 6S, it also had a 5-inch wheel.
Yeah.
So now we're like we're using the same motors and the same ESCs, but now it's 16S. 5.15 to 1 ratio with a 4-inch wheel. That's why it is. So the cost has not changed for the drive system, but yet now it has more power than the Tantrum drive.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that's pretty good, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just sound design principles. Live near the event. Use outside sources when tooling in house doesn't make sense, because some teams have tooling in their shops and stuff like that, and sometimes it makes more sense to just for a cost saving standpoint, not even just cost, a time saving standpoint, where you could be doing other things. Just make sure that you vet your sources and get we don't have the issue of a couple seasons ago where there was a bad grade of titanium that went around, or aluminum that went around, that everyone used a supplier from China.
Bronco notoriously.
Yeah, a gigabyte. That was fun times.
The other thing that saved us a lot of money this year was I made my own batteries. Like here's one of the loose cells right here. They're actually here's the newer versions of them right here.
Ooh.
This is like a I'm actually charging it out because I've been playing around with Vesk, and that's always the
endless battle of trying to discover how Vesks work.
Yeah,
Rory? Rory?
Do I just crank it this way? Oh, and it's on fire now. Okay.
Ring. Mangle's here.
So let me do the math real quick, because I had to solder a lot of cells. So each one has 16 and 16. So let me pull up a calculator real quick. I don't have to do it by math.
I think we need the countdown music, right?
Yeah.
16 times 6 equals 96 individual cells per robot.
Yeah.
That is some cells.
Because we use drone racing cells because they're very cheap, they're very available. And then the drone racing scene is always pushing the edge. That's why Beetles and all the other weight classes got so insane.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a comparable C rating, so you can actually draw current from them and have them blow up.
Oh no, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So in one of our fights this year, we had a hard short in our crosslink, and it pulled probably about 2,000 amps, and the battery's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's like, this is fine. This is all good.
So what's nice about being able to dump all the amps in the world is if there's a short on a wire, it just blows the wire. The wire becomes a fuse, which is not very convenient because it doesn't burn the robot down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an improvement. That's an
You would
improvement
want
to
the
just
wires to
everything's
go
on
first.
fire.
It's like you have 2 kiloamps. Kiloamp hasn't been in the scene from BattleBots since like the early 2000s. Just weird RAM bot. That's the first thing that popped in my head. I don't know why, but yeah, that falls flat. Sometimes Steve doesn't work. But yeah, that's a crazy amount of power. You know, but you know, budget builds. Try to source your parts and go from there. All right, so I think we've done a fair amount of questions. I think it's time to get into some fights.
I think
it's time to get into the nitty gritty, and we're gonna
go for
start off.
Certifiable banger.
What a hit! I'm just talking about the one hit, but the rest of the fight was a banger.
We were once again seemingly quite high up in the stands for this one, and then all of a sudden Gruff on fire comes into eye level, and he's just like, oh,
just man, I can't remember if were we on red? I think we were on red.
We were on red, yeah.
This was Friday. It was red on both sessions that day.
But I gotta say, Witch Doctor's on some kind of a run here.
The other thing
they ran forks.
They ran their little forks, and they weren't spinning at full speed yet.
Which is a bit terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah. I will say Gruff did get under them a couple of times, which was exciting for a few moments, and then it wasn't exciting for Gruff anymore for those reasons.
No. They lose a front wedge pretty early on in this fight. They have those little wedges at the front, because I remember talking with the metal guy on the team. His name is escaping me. But I remember I met with them. I went to one of their watch parties, and I know that they were very happy with how those front wedges work, because I know they were down at a Maker Faire event down in Miami, and it performed really, really well.
Yeah.
It just wasn't having it this time. Mike is just such an aggressive driver. I think even since BattleBots came back onto the scene, it's just full bore. I mean, this is Witch Doctor. It doesn't matter how tough your robot is, how scary the weapon is. He's just going full face into anything that you have, and he's going to leave your bot in a pile of scrap. That's just the bottom line. And I feel bad for my home squad, but it just was never going to happen. I don't think it just it's bringing a knife to a gunfight kind of thing. Yeah. Where Gruff just doesn't really have the weapon capability to really stand up to repeated beatings like this. I feel like we've seen this multiple times with this robot, where it can take hits, but it doesn't seem to get on the upper hand after it. I was thinking it can about survive.
When we were watching we were watching the fight the other week, and just thinking, man, this thing went 3 minutes against Tombstone, and now I don't know whether it's just because it's more suited to horizontals, or whether the power of the spinners has improved over the years, maybe a factor of both. But it just doesn't seem to be doing quite as well anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, in this fight,
things anymore, is it?
No, this fight it got hit right in a back wheel that obviously has scuppered their drive on one side, and then I think the big hit which exploded it was the gas tank for the flamethrower on the right side.
Yeah.
Which was still going,
blowing out the side.
It was still going. It just, wasn't
at
directed
the polycarb
anymore.
I'm not sure it was within that square that's on the arena floor.
I don't know if it was fully under their control after the point.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you guys see this fight from the pits? And if so, what's the morale after seeing Witch Doctor just completely destroy probably one of the tougher robots in the field?
So I've seen the episode since then, but I don't recall seeing this live, because I think this is we were probably battering up for our robot fight about this point. Or we actually might have been in the queue. So I would have been running around getting changed and last finding touches. So, but I
looking
did see
dapper.
I did see it afterwards, this last weekend, and it was or this Thursday, most recent Thursday actually. Then it's just like I said, its power level is getting more and more and more. Witch Doctor's now running revolts for their weapon system now, which is the same as Hypershock, the same as Riptide. It's just it's a lot of power.
Yeah, it's definitely a scary piece of kit, and I fear their future opponents because let's face it, they're making the bracket.
Next opponent?
They're making the
Steve,
bracket.
it's your bit.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
it is my bit. There really isn't much else to talk about this fight. I mean, this
No,
was
it
over
was-
and done with in the first minute and a half.
It was a good beatdown, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Fight of the week, apparently.
yeah, according to
I
BattleBots Fight of the Week.
I disagree. I think there's one later on that's better, but
So
in fact,
in
there's
any
two
case-
later on that are better.
Yeah. In any case, the future fight for Gruff is Malice. Malice has had a down and up year. It's been very middling.
It's left a lot to be desired this year.
Yeah,
so far,
and nothing on the team. It just it just hasn't happened this year. They haven't gotten the
they
wins.
need a statement win.
I mean, their big win was when they very much lost, and
Yeah. Honestly, and it just I mean, sometimes all you got to do is survive to the bell. Win's a win.
Yeah.
But and
we'll
it
get on to
definitely
Malice
shows
in a bit.
definitely
Yeah.
shows the
There's
capability
a
of
lot
your
more
robot.
to talk about Malice in this
Yeah,
episode.
yes, there is. And then Witch Doctor has the Minotaur fight. And
boy.
everyone collectively rolled their eyes.
Yeah.
I
think
know
the audience reaction to hearing every time they brought it up that it was coming was, oh, not a ooh. It was
there
a
was a certain level
"Oh."
of dread, wasn't there?
yeah, because well, I mean, let's put it this way: we know it's going to be a cracking good fight. We know it's going to be good, but it's the
All the rules around that fight have been fixed.
Yeah,
So,
Yes.
it's the storyline, So
Yeah.
hopefully, hopefully we get a good fight. No weird controversy. Everything's been ironed out from since they've last fought, which was only a season ago. So hopefully, maybe this is a way for BattleBots to test their rules and say, hey, did we really fix the rule set? Let's do this before the bracket happens. So, but it'll be a crazy way to end Witch Doctor's schedule. 3-0 so far. Could possibly go 4-0.
Well,
could be a top seed. Same with Minotaur. Could be a top seed. This fight coming up here is a fight for. It could be a fight for top seed. Honestly,
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah. I mean, we'll look forward to that. We won't see that for a little bit. I think we got about a month.
Oh, it's a few
before we see that.
weeks.
Yeah,
we've got
and
a
then
break
Shark
coming up.
Week, and then
I don't think it's Shark Week, but
Oh, is that why we have
I don't know. I don't think
No.
it is Shark Week coming
It's
up.
just
That's
a break.
I'm so
usually
used to
later.
Shark Week being the break for BattleBots.
Yeah,
We'll
Ask
see.
Greg. Greg surely knows, right?
Greg, why?
Ring. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically this fight done. And then we'll wish Gruff a very speedy recovery after getting blown to bits, unfortunately.
Definitely.
Next fight. Malice and Valkyrie. So
The appeal.
yeah.
The appeal.
This fight happens. There's a lot of afterward stuff. Let's talk about the fight first before we get into the nitty-gritty of the appealsness that happens afterwards.
So Valkyrie's weapon is removable now.
Yeah, about
Hexbug,
that.
take note.
Yep.
About that. Yeah, I wouldn't be sad to see an undercutter Hexbug. I'd like to see how they'd handle that. I'd like to see how they handle the drag, because it's on the ground.
Of
It is a
Valkyrie,
very
isn't
weird.
it?
That's what I was going to say, because this is not the sort of robot you expect to be taking out the weapon in a fight like Hypershock we saw in last year's. I'm going to call it Bounty Hunters. I've forgotten the name of it.
Sin
Sin City
City.
Slugfest.
Sin City Slugfest.
That's it. You can kind of understand it because of the way in which Hypershock is hitting. Malice being a horizontal, I think it's more the way Valkyrie hits Malice that sends a shock back through the system to then take it off. But yeah, that was big functional damage that
There's just one moment where the weapon's on and then it's just not on anymore.
Yeah.
And Malice can really only hit the body, with the way that the weapon is, designed
there's
on
a
that
nice
robot.
chunk taken out of the UHMW on one side from Malice. But that big hit breaks all of the bearings of Malice as well. They're still able to spin, which is a good point for later on.
Yeah.
But they're not healthily spinning.
No. And Malice's adjustment for this fight to have the kind of like I don't know what you would call them. They kind of look like brass knuckles, but like in like the things they have protecting the nuts on top and bottom so they don't, take serious damage to those very precious areas of the bot that, keep it structurally sound and keep the top plate from becoming, a pretzel.
Again,
as David showed us after the fight. Rush, by the way.
Yes.
Because this is the team full of the Davids.
Not including
And then,
me.
after that hit, it's like two guys stumbling out of a bar, or two ladies stumbling out of a bar. I'll be equally opportunistic here.
anyone can be drunk and disorderly.
It's
true.
what it's I'm fair here, I swear. But there's stages of this fight where they're just kind of bumping into each other like bumper cars, and it kind of just we kind of just go down
it gets
to
a point where they're not moving enough.
and
no, there probably should be a double count out, but I mean, where movement is movement this series, we're going to get a couple of fights like this one, I think.
Maybe going forward, if both bots have no offensive capability, maybe it's a mercy rule, to end the fight.
I don't know.
The thing is, I don't know if you can do that, because then what if a bot, spontaneously catches fire, after the fight is over, and then another bot could have gone off with a win, just because, they don't have it's a very tricky situation. I don't want to be the guy.
It's a difficult line
to
walk for the refs to be able to determine what is movement and what isn't.
Yeah.
It's where I'm enjoying the sort of communication between them more this season, and just like asking, are you able to go over there? Can you go and move towards them? Are you moving outside the circumference? Yeah, I would still think that the whole light from the top that we've suggested prior, if you can move outside of that circle, but I do think that would look even more like ballroom dancing in this fight than it already did.
Honestly, I don't know. It almost kind of looked more like middle school dance, where like you just kind of
awkwardly to one side doing dance, and then
leave space for the Holy Ghost in the middle there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get through the fight. We wind the clock down, and then the judges come out.
Yeah. So I will say that we were on the red side for this one as well, and it is very obvious to us. Malice is spinning at the end.
Yes.
There are very few people on the blue side for this one, as I recall. Anytime you see lots of people on the blue side, that's because it was Saturday when that was recorded, and they've edited it in, because the blue side was sort of half full, if that, at some points during the 2 weeks.
Which is understandable, because it's it's during the week, people are working. Where like when the weekend comes, we knew it was going to get filled up, and we had to get there early.
The fact of the matter is, we saw it spin. So
what you can't see it from the judges' side is that it was spinning. Malice was facing us, not the judges, and the judges aren't necessarily looking at their little monitors. They're looking at the fight in front of them. That's why they're sat completely next to the box. So the fact that the decision then goes Valkyrie's way, to start with, seems incredibly controversial, but that is why the appeals process is here now.
So let's dig into the appeals process. We've covered it in past. So,
I'm
Jevin,
ready.
You seem like you're ready to go. I'll just give this to you.
For this now.
He's pulling his sleeves up. He's ready to go.
I'm ready for this. The appeals process. It's interesting because they filmed a lot more for the appeals process than I think we got to see. The appeals process starts right after the fight. You're high adrenaline at that point, and Greg will come over and ask you, are you appealing this fight? And you have to make a decision then and there, because production has to keep moving, whether you're going to appeal the decision that has been made. Obviously, the Malice team have a very strong case to appeal this one, and so they say, yes, we're appealing it. And so Greg goes and tells everyone that's involved, which includes our favorite Jeff Jeffries.
Yep, definitely Jeff
Mike.
Jeffries.
Oh, Mike.
Mike Jeffries, and that process is starting. They then do the interview bits, and then they got Bunny to go and press a green button over by Mike Jeffries' table, which we don't see at all.
Yeah, we didn't see that. In the edit.
We know it's recorded,
I was curious.
So
it was recorded.
The footage exists.
So yeah,
maybe they just
go
didn't like how it looked in post. You know, I don't know.
It did feel a bit strange.
Yeah, but we
so
do
yeah,
know the
anyway,
green button exists. It
Yes.
hasn't completely disappeared. Rumbles are not fully gone. Maybe, I don't know. Never mind.
So the green button is pressed, and from that point, the production continues. They can't stop to do an appeals process.
Nope.
So anytime that there is a break in fights or anything like that, that is where the appeals process comes into play, and they're able to work on it in between fights and when things are setting up. So the judges rewatch the fight on the monitor, and they are watching from every camera angle at that point. And that is where they then see Malice is spinning at the end, and that's where the decision is overthrown in Malice's favor. And the judges might not necessarily even give you the time of day for an appeal. If there isn't a good enough case to be made, then they can just throw it out and say, nope, try again next time. Or don't,
not,
because you've lost your one appeal.
You only got the one. And we learned in this episode that if you're correct on your appeal, you keep it.
You get to keep it, yeah.
If you keep being right, you're not penalized for being right.
No, I think it's there to stop people from keep appealing, going, oh, I lost this fight, I'm upset.
Right.
So it doesn't waste people's time, basically. Yeah. You have to be really decisive in when you use it. I really like it. I didn't think I would until I saw it used, and I really like it, and it was used effectively here.
Yeah, this was
it's very transparent. I like the fact that the way that they covered it, because of course, sitting in the stands, you don't know what it's going to look like when they actually edit it down and put it on TV. No. But it looks like they've really got a good base here to go forward and say, hey, this is how, you know, we're never going to have the Minotaur witch doctors. We're never going to have the very strange, you know, decisions that we've had in the past where we have, you know, social media uproar and, oh, it's been, you know, because it's a past filmed event, you know, like, oh, God forbid this was live, you know what I mean? So it's just, you know, the scenes. But yeah, and it's interesting too, because this actually goes post, because it was split, this decision.
Yeah.
It goes unanimous for Malice after the fact, after you see that weapon capability, you know, and Malice had done, you know, the more meaningful damage to Valkyrie by just ripping the disc out, which is becoming a feature of Valkyrie, and I'm kind of scared of that. Not really.
It's the mini bot. It just left spinning in the middle of the arena to cause damage.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
Bluetooth.
New arena hazard. But yeah, that was it.
That was
How much did you capture this in the pits, Jeff?
I think you said every part of this episode, I'm like, right. Like I'm not even like joking about that. It's like
it's very busy in the pits. We saw it there in the mornings when we were there. It's very busy trying to get just your own robot ready.
In previous seasons, they would, you know, like the fight would just be scrambled, and you know, they would just put them on whatever episode. This one is very true to the real life schedule.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yes.
Yeah. From being there.
Like all the episodes, like usually it's like, I don't know, so like some like day one they would film like episode or session one would be like all of episode one, then 4 fights of episode 2. Then the next day would be 4 fights from episode 2, then all the fights in episode 3. So there's some that will be like split down the middle during the midway major, and obviously there's some delays, but 90% of the time it's all the fights happened that day. So everyone,
I think this is the only fight out of this episode that was moved back a week, and I can see why, because I think it would have upset the flow of last week's episode, and it fit in a lot better in this week's.
It's been given the time of day it needs to kind of explain the appeals process. So
they sort of touched on it earlier in the season, but obviously they didn't use it. But then they've explained it properly, and we've seen it in action. And it's just very transparent, and I like it for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to see the judges' scorecards.
We did.
Yes.
Really quickly. So they initially it goes, you know, 6-5 and 6-5 favor of Valkyrie for Fawn and Lisa, and then Derek goes 8-3. Because I think it's possible that Derek saw the weapon moving and the other two did not. So the appeals ones were interesting to me because Fawn just adds a single weapon point for damage, and then leaves aggression and control alone, where Lisa adds that damage point and then flips aggression and control in favor of Malice to really tilt it in their favor and end up with a card that looks identical to Derek's. So I'm curious to see what Fawn saw that Lisa and Derek saw, like what Fawn didn't see that Lisa and Derek saw, so that there's, because the idea is that, with a judges table, you want to make sure that there's, everybody knows and everybody sees, the same thing. There should be no subjective nature in a judging. That's what they're trying to eliminate, which is impossible. But they're trying. It's, I mean, the whole deal is as long as 2 judges get it right, that's why you have 3 judges. Then it doesn't matter. But it's curious. Anytime they show the judges scorecards, there's always going to be like discourse of like, oh, I wonder why they saw it this way, because
which
so much experience in fighting,
it leads to the community needing to be sometimes better. I've definitely seen posts this week of people ratting on the judges for.
Yeah. I haven't seen them. I don't social
with
media.
It being a fix
Sam does that,
with,
and Jevin does that.
Appeals, and I don't know. It gets tiresome. It gets tiresome to begin with, and it's not necessary.
Yeah.
But Malice wins the appeal.
We got the right outcome.
We know next. So
worth all saying that we all predicted Valkyrie to win this, and we were all very happy to be wrong.
Yeah, because it felt dirty to get this get a win like this in a way, because it just didn't seem. Well, that's the thing, that this is one of those things that like it's erased from the season. Basically, this outcome, it was flipped, done correctly. We move on. It's like challenges in sports, where if they didn't make the catch in bounds, or the ball didn't actually, like with baseball, the ball didn't actually go out. If it actually didn't go out, it hit the wall and came back in. There's no home run, or soccer if they were offside, or football if they were offside, like you could actually go review that in VAR. It's so important to make sure that you get the stuff right, just for the integrity of the sport, to make sure that we're not shown as a rigged show, because God forbid. Anyway, moving on. All right, next fight.
Oh, who are
the next fights? Oh yeah, we've obviously covered Malice.
Oh yes, Malice's next fight is up
Gruff.
against Gruff. Yes, and then we have Valkyrie's next fight, which is their last fight, and that's up against Glitch. Do we rate Glitch going in, having seen its first 2 fights?
The full vert so far. They've got horizontals for the rest of the season. We will see how that goes.
Yeah. I feel like it's driven better than it ever has, but it's just we haven't seen enough of it. We've seen less than a minute of it fighting. Yeah, and we've seen enough Valkyrie to to see.
I think a lot of the reason we didn't see a lot of Glitch is in their rookie season they never got flipped upside down, so they never considered how does it drive upside down, and it doesn't. So they need. I don't know. They should try to incorporate some type of either over the front rider or over the back rider into their design, because I feel like with that they would be a little bit better.
Yeah, or imagine like Monsoon style, floppiness.
Yeah,
with that chunky of a weapon.
I think that's somewhat similar to what they're trying for, because they've obviously got the suspension in there already, and that just makes sort of weapon.
That's exactly
suspension.
the reason my mind went that way, because I know that they have that with those wheels.
Then you have the 2 points. They would always rust on the 2 Omni wheels, because if you pick up 1 Omni wheel, it just starts going in a weird direction.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll have to wait and see, because the co-rookie
definitely see.
The co-rookie of the year has some catching up to do, and Valkyrie, I'm sure, is going to want to get the win back that they thought they had here.
Got a point to prove, going into that last fight.
Yeah, definitely. Need a good statement win, possibly, going into the bracket, because if they win, they'll be 2-2, and then who knows, whatever seeding you get. All right, so now
David said we shall see. I think the more appropriate quote would be, or rather, you should see.
Yeah.
We have already seen.
I knew where that was going straight away.
Yeah.
I just decided not to do it.
Anyway,
we've got a family tree coming up next.
No.
The
All right.
tree is growing.
Family tree.
The Seattle brawl, the Seattle scuffle.
This was a great fight.
Yeah, it was
through and through. Big Dill's best
bottom
fight ever.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm happy for Emmanuel, because it's. I mean, we've talked about it before, where Big Dill was a reserve this year.
Yeah.
And this is their wild card. This is their chance to, they brought a bot again and made some changes, and they're going to prove that they deserve to have a spot in the main slew of bots. And I think this is a good one to have on your record to go back and say, hey, remember that MadCatter fight?
Yeah.
We didn't come out on top, but it doesn't matter.
They were winning a lot of the early engagements, though.
Honestly,
they really were.
Really bringing it to Calvin.
Yeah, and
I also enjoyed the mini bot war.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was
Like
so
arena.
cute that they gave that little, the little mini fight in the big box to the little bots, and then they said, "All right, move over. It's time for the big boys to
Because
play."
it just started with the mini bots going, "Wee,
Yeah.
attack.
Look at us, mom and dad. We're on TV, and then
Yeah,
after
okay,
that,
and then
Leave
mum
it
and
to
dad
the
went,
big
"Blah."
boys. Yeah.
This was a great fight. So back and forth, so entertaining. For me, this is one of the fights of the week, honestly.
easily.
This one should get more time on YouTube, because though it is two verts fighting, with both have lifters, they're very similar robots because they're built or designed by similar people or the same person, or they all share a big family. As like Flip and
there's
Tantrum, a
lineage
brother and
involved with
sister.
it.
This is
Yeah.
a brothers team between MadCatter and Big Dill.
Yeah.
And it was such a good fight to watch. That spinner is definitely potent on Big Dill, and should not be looked past despite its smaller size.
Yeah, even though it doesn't have the reach that Catters has, it still can do quite a bit of damage, and it really did in this fight. It's ripping forks off. It's doing damage to the mini bots. It's just a really good fight through and through. I mean, it was ground and pound all the way down to the end, and I really gotta say it's nice to see Big Dill actually finally really show what it can do. And I mean, then again, there's also MadCatter always being the way, and it was nice to see MadCatter rebound from its dismantling
Riptiding
against Riptide. It's nice to see them get back into the fray and really just kind of get back on track, because it's not been maybe the season that they were hoping for so far. Maybe they were expecting they were hoping to be undefeated maybe at this point in the season, and now 2-1, but
they've fixed their schedule. At least they're on like the winning side. So
yes,
this was a good win.
There's light at the end of the tunnel. It's not doom and gloom.
One thing I particularly enjoyed from this fight was, I believe it was Ellis driving one of the mini bots.
Yes, the little vert on Big Dill's team
at MadCatter and then just flying off in the distance as soon as it
just
hit.
bounces off of MadCatter and just goes, "Whoa!"
Yeah, very much the I mean, you could say it's like the big brother little brother holding them at arm's length, but it was more like a Falcon punch across the arena.
Yeah.
Basically.
I did hear when he was hit across. I then did hear in the distance, "Game."
There you go. Perfect.
Brilliant.
So, I mean, there's not a whole lot to go into this fight. I guess maybe that might have been the why. I mean, that they had the big spectacle in this fight, where that was the fight of the week, where the big fireball, because there's a lot of just robots grind against each other, push. Like, we love those.
This was
of
a great driving fight, but
yes,
perhaps not the most explosive fight for the YouTube fight of the week, but still worth highlighting because it's very good, very good.
It was strange to get some cut Martin Mason for one to say. That was very confusing, because normally they love to just listen to him hype up things as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then this goes to the judges, and it goes unanimous for Catter.
Understandable, I think. At the end on that.
Though it's unanimous, I reckon it's close.
Yeah,
obviously we haven't seen the judges' card, but I think it's going to be something like a 6-5 in favor of Catter.
Yeah, I would think so.
Maybe
Jeff,
more for damage.
Jeff, what'd you make of this fight? Seeing it, because I know this was the day of busyness.
Yeah, I did see this one because I think I was in queue for this one.
Yeah, this one you definitely were in queue for.
Yeah.
I'm just looking back.
I would hope so.
Little book of shame and.
I think we were actually on in this, like, the tunnel during this fight. So going into this one, we were trying to. I was kind of pulling for Calvin just because I after what happened last fight. But I was actually very surprised with Dill's system, because Dill has those tantrum drives in it, and you can really see how, like, the two the two different design style. Like they're they're under the same banner, but they're totally different approaches. Like a Catter has basically a single stage, like you can see it in the picture if you look closely at the front wheel, the gear drive in the front wheel.
Yeah.
Compared to the right angle drive bolt on system that a Dill has, but you can also see different little design characteristics that they both incorporate, like the armor panel or the armor hoops and stuff like that. But it was very nice to see Dill do what it did. Just for I was not expecting a lot out of the little token weapon. Like I think it was like, oh, I need a weapon so I can get not be a wild card. I have a weapon now. I can be a main robot. Weapon. A whammy or whatever they called it on there, like a weapon in name only.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, it actually it did good. A wino, that's what it was. Weapon in name
Wino.
only.
There you go.
Yeah.
We had a.
But-
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great fight from start to finish. It's great to see Big Dill finally doing the thing. It's good to see the pickle actually, pickling other things. And actually doing the good work.
I believe there is a MadCatter UHMW panel on eBay now that has some big gouges taking out of it from Big Dill. So
yeah, it's
go and bid on that if you want it, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think like the smaller weapons are like reach used to be the meta, but I think small token weapons are the meta right now because one, you don't need to be as far away to get it to spin up, and two, you can spin it at stupid RPMs.
Yes, this is true.
Like RPMs you can get them at, or like beetle levels, just because the smaller it is, the more RPM you can put into it with still maintaining the 250 tip speed.
Yep.
But the thing is, of course, you sacrifice bite. You got to be careful. You got to make sure that you have a fast enough drive to make sure that you get good enough engagement with a small weapon, because with the fact that it's spinning so fast, I mean, there's less chances for that tooth to actually dig in.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for more wanton destruction, and by the time it spins a bunch of times, it's already done enough damage, and you've been on the other robot long enough where you've done considerable damage to their armor or their weapon or what have you. But yeah, it was a good fight, and I hope their next fights are just as good. Honestly,
Who have they got next?
Yeah, who have they got?
That is the
next?
question.
Catter has Lockjaw.
It'll be a good fight.
I don't know how this is going to go. You have Vert versus Vert, but you have Catter with all their different attachments and different, sword and shield or the pontoons or the lifting arm. And I'd like to see how strategically they're going to go into this. And the same thing goes with Donald. Is he going to go really defensive? Does he really respect Catter's weapon? Does he go with a big back wedge, to make sure that he can deflect those hits? Or is he just going to go full bore and, do what he did against SawBlaze and just, no forks, go. I'll figure it out afterwards.
As long as he has
I don't
no
think
fire, it's all good, right?
Yeah.
That's
We see the crows the what did they called? Gear crow looking forks at the front. Will we see?
I hope so.
I mean, they're on the photo.
I know, right? Is this going to be like another Claw Viper where we never see that really cool Cobra four bar thing? Because it
never was.
Yeah, I know.
That was eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
Duped Jevon into building it, and it didn't quite work.
And then in talking to the team, they then said, yeah, it didn't work.
Yeah.
I know that. I tried it.
Oh, the fun of chatting to builders in the pub afterwards, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Man.
Who has Big Dill got next?
Big Dill's next fight is free shipping. So this could be
another
fun.
good driving fight.
I very much look forward to this fight because I feel like this is two bots that, free shipping season, put on a spinner, see what happens. Maybe it hasn't gone perfectly to plan.
They've faced some top tier opponents, to be fair, Hydra and Minotaur.
I would say, shoot, look at their schedule. You have Gigabyte, who maybe hasn't had such a great season. I know they've had past season success, but ever since we had the upper deck, it's been very hard for them to really kind of, get around that.
Plus rookie drivers.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's also important. And also having a pole that you can or cannot see. And then Minotaur and Hydra, those are two really tough fights.
Exactly.
So hoping to finish off their season with a win, maybe end up 2-2.
Well,
Big
I feel
Big
like
Dill
this is
hoping to get a
must-win,
win.
right? For free shipping to get into the bracket. So
Yeah, they need a really good statement win, and Big Dill just needs a. It would be nice for Big Dill to just get a win
they
because I feel like
deserve a win.
I feel like they've
Like,
made some
put on
progress.
very good fights.
Yes,
They've definitely put on very good fights, but they don't have a win to show for it just yet. So
Yeah.
it'd be nice for them to pick up a win too.
I feel like it's similar to Kraken, where like Kraken's had a couple of fights where like they've made a change. Well, maybe not such a strong change. I feel Big Dill's a much less of a change. But like they've had, entertaining fights and they've been getting better each fight. And so hopefully Big Dill's final fight, they really show that they deserve to stay in the main run.
Yeah.
With that, we will move on to the next one. And Jeff, I will let you go. So what was the strategy going into this fight with Ribbot? I know you kind of touched on it in the opening questions that we had, but seeing that they went with the undercutter, were you happy with the setup that you had gone in with? Because I know they were having trouble getting it running, but they finally got it running.
So thankfully, I actually saw this, right?
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, I would hope so.
That definitely checks out.
Eyes closed the whole time. Nope,
blacks
nothing's
out.
happening. It's
No.
okay.
It
I
feels
would
like a
understand if you
blackout.
blacked out at the event, and you remembered later, but this is a whole different situation. But yeah.
Yeah.
What happens
So,
in Vegas?
It's in Vegas. No, so I'm going. We finish up with the rotator, so we knew we were like, okay, well, our hybrid config that we made for Ribbot is not ready.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up taking some of our bent parts and chopped them up and made kind of like a weird hybrid thing that we can make with parts on hand. So we ended up like chopping up parts off that rotator config and making a little L bracket that bolts to the side of the robot and kind of beef it up a little bit. But as you can see, it still got ripped off, but it lasted longer than it would have before, and it didn't peel the frame with it, which is nice. But we went in there. We were building our multiple configs in the front. We didn't know if they were going to go undercut or whatever. Like going into it, we were actually locked in at what we wanted to do. We were going to run what we ran. We were going to run no matter what. But every time we were over there, we would have the wedge on it hanging out at the front because the wedge covers the whole thing, so you can't really see behind it. So it'd always be half covered with the 22-inch blade does not clear the wedge, so we would have a blanket over it with like the wedge sticking out a little bit. And that was kind of like the way we left it most of the time. And so we didn't know if they were going to run the undercutter. We were trying to bait them into running the vert because they're like, oh, they're running the wedge, so let's run the vert. Then we kept hiding Ace around too because we didn't know we were going to run Ace, and Ace didn't do a whole lot this fight because Ribbot was thrown by me onto them.
Yeah, that doesn't help. That usually doesn't help keep a bot running.
But
help,
we added the unicorn horns is basically what it is onto the fork, so we can get higher robots, like robots that have a higher ground clearance out of the. Like Ribbot has a pretty high ground clearance. Most of the robots have about a half inch to an inch of ground clearance. So if you run a 2-inch fork, that's plenty to get their wheels up. With Ribbot, we needed like a 4-inch fork, which it changes a lot of things because you don't have as much of a lever advantage with Ace because you have a taller rotational point. But going into the fight, we basically were like weapon to weapon every time because if we can eventually kill ours, because we know our weapon won't stop, it'll just spin slow the whole time because we were still fighting the motor issues. We were actually playing around with a lot of tuning, thinking it was a tuning issue. So we were able to like band-aid what we had. We had some weird stuff going on. Like we had one motor that was kind of tight, and one motor is very loose, and the loose one would get it going. Then eventually the tight one would start commutating, then take over. A lot of band-aids going into this fight.
Well, I mean, it's okay because at this point in the event, you've had two really tough fights that have put Jackpot in the garage a couple times and needed repair. But oh man, were frog legs on the menu for dinner in this fight?
This was a biology lesson in how to dissect a frog. I'll tell you now. This is the sort of thing that gets robot combat videos banned on YouTube for animal cruelty.
Yeah.
There you go. Speaking of, I see a cat in your screen. Oh, sweetie. Oh my God. Where's mine? Mine's probably sleeping somewhere. But
so yeah, after that first, when we popped him up, the head went away. So it wasn't a frog after the first hit, so it was fine.
It's all good. It did look like the frog was just sort of watching on in the background, sort of half submerged in arena like this. Going,
I did like the little detail they put. So the little reflection highlights were actually card suits.
Mm-hmm.
So they always change one little thing to make it match their opponent.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like halfway through, so I'd say within the most crazy part of the fight was definitely the first 40 seconds.
Yes.
I think I counted there was like 20 plus weapon on weapon hits in the first 40 seconds. It was insane. Like the fact that both of us weren't dying, then I clipped that first wheel, which was kind of setting the tone for the rest of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, well, I know what side I need to focus now. So I get popped up after that hit, thrown around. We did our first ever in competition self-right.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, that proving that it works. Everything works now.
And good to keep it up and out of the way. I noticed in your fights against spinners, you gotta keep that safe, because even though it has forks, you don't want it to get chipped off.
Yeah, so it's mostly there so we can scrape ourselves if we get in our face.
Mm-hmm.
But so we self-righted in the corner after that first one and popped down. It was actually a very slow self-right because I like halfway self-righted, then I drove backwards.
Mm-hmm.
But then we go through. We got centered arena, hit weapon on weapon again. I get into the popped up on my back.
Mm-hmm.
So the rider is already up. So like that's actually where I like keeping the rider.
Mm-hmm.
Is I like keeping it like halfway up. So if I get popped on my back, my wheels are touching.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
backwards.
It's kind of like a secondary stable position because
the
back wheels
like a counterbalance.
Yeah.
And then you lose a front plate pretty early in this fight, where now you have a soft spot that you kind of try to. A soft spot ish. Jackpot's pretty stout already.
So it got kind of tweaked. So if you notice in some of the frame got tweaked after the first few hits. So if you're noticing, we would drive forward, and I mentioned it earlier where we drive forward, and I would like pinpoint her. Mm-hmm. That was not a lot of that was on purpose.
Come on.
So
you can lie here, it's fine.
so after we get off our back, we go weapon to weapon again. I pop up, I pop down, pop up. Then they get turned just right because their weapon hit. Then I swipe in and I get the other wheel. But at that point, Lucas was like, "You fucking mad that he's shaking me like I'm still trying to drive, dude."
The fight is still happening. I know you're excited.
Yeah, Lucas grabbed me by my shoulder and started shaking me. "You fucking mad man,
You clearly picked your spot, and from this point on, it's just. Really, now you can pick your spots. You could really take your time.
See, at this point, both of us are really hurt.
Yeah.
Like, you see our upright, and it's... Our uprights are... and they're still spinning.
Yeah.
It's
somehow, some way, the disc is... The heart is still spinning, even though the weapon is not exactly straight anymore.
So the weapon actually cocked inwards like this, so in towards the frame. And the hilarious part is our weapon belt on this side flipped and inverted and walked onto the side of the pulley, so it still held tension, which is the hilarious part.
Only in the battle box. Only in.
I mean, as long as it's still spinning, everything's fine, right?
Yeah. So it was still spinning. We ended up getting. So we weren't spinning that fast when we got that shot on the back of them.
No,
we were. It was maybe 90 to 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. In the meantime, their weapon is full bore, full bore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's up. It's tilted this way right now, right? Mm-hmm. So after they get flipped over, so they're spinning the other way. So when we we go in, we get that massive hit. Like it's massive weapon. Like we got at the speed. We were maybe like the 190. Like we weren't full speed because it would the weapon was very gimped at that point. So we get hit. Then, if you notice, her upright is now facing this way.
That's fine.
Overcorrection.
Every time you've corrected, just go back the other way. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, what is fatigue?
Yeah,
You know,
it's
we
part of the
fly-
design now. It's fine.
We fly
It's all
like
good.
a quarter of the way across the arena. Like we do like 4 or 5 360s.
That wasn't on purpose, the disco dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Then it writes. Then Jason grabs me and starts shaking me.
Yeah, guys, please.
Because Jason's the one that freaking he designed all the self-writer and he saw it right 2 times now. Well, 3 times if he can't when it got it stuck on its back. But
and then
then
for no good reason you decide weapon to weapon, it's fine.
Mhm.
well, so I don't know if the rules are public about that. You have to engage your opponent.
Yes, that is public. You have to engage if there's movement. If a bot is trying to leave their circumference, if they're still mobile enough to crab walk, you have to go attack.
Yeah.
Which
And
Which is
attack you
interesting.
very much did.
yeah, which is interesting because now, like, I mean, you're clearly hurt, and it's difficult to go in, and very very close to the end of this fight, Ribbot starts leaking something
Yeah, black juice
all
all
over
the
the kill cell
I
slot.
think Ribbot's liquid cooled.
Yes. Okay.
Oh.
Because so they had to go to liquid cooling because they can't run their super voltage anymore.
Mm-mm.
Because the new voltage limits.
Mhm.
Yes.
So they're pushing a lot more amps, which means heat.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it starts to leak a bunch of weird fluid. So if you notice, like every once in a while I would go to the center arena and start spinning.
Mhm.
So it's not me celebrating early, it's me trying to snap my broken chain.
Just
because it'll
So-
drive better without it.
basically.
Yes. So the one wheel kept locking up and it locked up really hard. So if I spin it and gyro it, then I slam it down. It's only 35 chain, number 35. So it snaps. We're talking about going to bigger chain because it can, has a little bit more slop tolerance.
Yeah.
But it snaps it. Then after that, we start able to drive again.
And then
Smart.
after that, I mean, you basically wind down the fight down to the judges, and
Mhm.
it's all Jackpot all the way. I mean, Ribbot had no business in this fight after it lost wheels, unfortunately.
And is now 0-3.
Yep.
I know.
0-3
They were-
Ribbot.
They went 3-0 last season, and now they're 0-3. Like we went 2-0 last
Yeah.
season, and then we were 0-2. It was
Yeah, the both of you kind of had similar seasons where like you guys just it just wasn't happening this year the way that it happened previous years where you guys just go through the competition and take names.
it was a gremlin
Mhm.
issues with both of us. Like ours was it started with the rider with the Skorpios, then our motors got weak, so we couldn't really fight back against Rotator.
Mm.
So it was kind of compounding. Then Ribbot, they had I believe they had a full burn down.
Yeah, they
in,
did catch fire, didn't they?
in the test box, and that was the undercutter.
Mhm.
So they
Yeah.
never got the undercutter back going. So the first 2 fights, they had to run their vertical when they would have been better off running the undercutter.
Yeah.
So both of us were kind of like in situations where, yeah, this is not ideal. And with theirs, it wasn't ideal. Like anyone, either Ribbot or Jackpot could have won this fight either way. It wasn't like this robot's going to win this fight. It came down to a lot of weird hits and shenanigans going on with like belt tensions and things bending just right.
Yeah, and I mean, you both have somewhat functional damage, more visible functional damage on Ribbot with losing a whole side of drive. But their
Yeah.
weap's still going. Yours is still
I
going, even
suppose
though
there's
your
the
drive is hampered.
visible damage of like the whole frame being like that as well, isn't there? So there's,
Yeah,
there's slight frame damage.
Yeah. Though I still
Um,
I still saw this as a Jackpot win, even though
Yeah. So after this fight, because we were only down to 1 frame after this because the Scorpio frame was kind of totaled, was kind of tweaked. But no, because if you look at the Rotator one, it was like this.
Hmm.
Then if you look at this frame, it's like this. So we ended up
just cut them in half and weld them together. Done.
that's basically kind of what happened. So I ended up going back to my house and grabbing the last season's Jackpot frame.
Oh.
And we ended up cutting the uprights off of it and welding it to the Ribbot frame to keep it as a backup.
Good things the things you do to stay alive and keep
And the
going through the
advantages
tournament.
of being nearby to the event
Yes,
as well, right?
living in Vegas.
Yeah, I went back to the house, went to the where was it? Frame stored at the time because I didn't have my garage yet. It was still in the house. So I went and got Yeah, I had both the frames in the house still. It was on the patio, just rusting away.
Oh, a lucky happenstance. Oh, what a lucky
Yeah.
happenstance to have robot frames. Just I can go grab
It's
that.
just hanging around there.
I'm just trying to
It's all
think.
good.
So obviously you fought now Skorpios, Rotator, and Ribbot.
Mhm.
I was just trying to think which of those is your sort of statement win or statement fight, rather the sort of one that should beat you, and if you beat it, you're doing well. I'm thinking it's probably this one, but also Rotator is there. And it's just like it's not an easy season.
Because we lost the rotator before. Like Skorpios was supposed to. I think Skorpios was supposed to be our even fight.
Yeah.
Then I think Rotator was supposed to be our even fight too, because we did a really good fight against him with our rookie robot, which was not a very good Jackpot. So they're like, oh, maybe they've improved. Like we have, but Rotator's also improved.
Yeah.
So I think that was our give me is probably going to be the next one, which is Shred. Because Shred rate is much lower on the rank. The Skorpios, I go back to that Scorpio fight. That still bugs me really, because if we had a good rider, that would have been a really good fight. Because in that first few seconds, we already nicked their arm. Like one of their, they have the two chains. One of their chains is already broken because of the reach. So we
calling out to the selection committee, if you want to do a rematch again in season 8.
Yeah, well, our blade went through their 5/8 AR plate on the front.
Yeah.
It's just
crazy.
It's just really good that the box is safe. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
It's well, I think what it is because our weapon is so skinny.
Yeah.
We have a very high pressure point.
Yeah. Really nice concentrated hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
just to add on like the Ribbot one, I know we overheard in the pub later on that they came back into the pits just chanting 0-3.
Silly.
But
Yeah,
at least they're laughing in
I wish
despair.
during the pre-fight interviews where they have us in like the quarter or they were interviewing the people, I made a joke about us trying to get rid of our Uncle Owen.
Yes.
Owen, because we're both 0-2 and no one wants to go 0-3.
Okay.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And no one, they didn't use it. I'm like, oh man, I was really hoping that would become a robot thing.
That cutting room floor, there's
Right,
so
you're
much
going to have to
gold on
lose several fights again next year and make the same joke and see if it makes it in.
Yeah, see if it holds.
Here's Jackpot's next fight. Their last.
Well, the thing is,
not Jackpots. I was going to say Ribbot.
We'll get to Jackpot's next fight. That'll happen. So Ribbot's next and final fight is against Skorpios. Yeah. So I don't know what you do against Skorpios because they've proven that they can beat a vert. Well, they beat Jackpot. But you can't run the undercutter against Skorpios, can you? I mean, just hope you run up and maybe clip the arm and
maybe got
a horizontal killer. That's the thing.
It's because Skorpios eats horizontals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
You've got to assume they're going to go for the vert because they have to. They're not as
I would
keen.
think. Yeah.
Either that or out of nowhere bring the flipper back.
the series
bold.
What was it? Series
bold.
3? Yeah,
Series
World
4.
Championship 3,
Series 4.
Yeah,
World Championship 4.
Yeah, they had the little tongue lifter. That was a thing that happened. I'd forgotten all about that.
But they're in a real hole to try and get out of, to get any chance to get in the bracket right now.
They need to win. But the thing is, I know they peppered it in the broadcast. We have had robots now in ways that we will never talk about again, the Last Chance Rumble. We have had robots that don't win a fight and make the bracket because, reasons, or if they have a really strong schedule. Is there an argument for Ribbot to make the final bracket because they've had such a rough
said
go?
Last episode, even though Tantrum presently sits at 1 and 2, because of pedigree, they will most likely make the bracket. It just depends where. I think potentially if Ribbot can get another win, then there is a chance that they can get in because of pedigree, because they were a high seed going into this season.
I mean, you're going to be one of the bottom 4, if nothing else. You're going to be scraping it, if that, because you've had such a tough go.
But it's
or if
It's
there's
just a
bots
question of-
with bots with wins that just weren't very impressive.
Who else finishes with a better record than you, and if there are enough spots left, then yeah.
This is when you're hoping.
There's
This is
lots
when
of
you're
things
hoping
to
that
weigh up.
bots don't make it to the arena. I know that's
either
not the
way,
way
it's
they
going to be
think,
very
but
tough going for them to
Yeah.
get it through. This is.
I mean, both
It's not looking strong.
Yeah,
Nah.
both bots are looking pretty good. I mean, Skorpios looking pretty great too. I mean, they're going in. I mean, up until the fight coming up, they're 2-0. So
I think
they're
that's
looking
the next fight.
they're
isn't it,
looking
that
pretty
we're
good.
talking
Yeah.
about?
So let's just hop on into that. No pun intended with
Oh
Ribbot.
boy! Oh boy!
This fight.
It's the fight that everyone except the teams wanted.
So
Yeah.
I want to poll the listeners here. How many people really thought that we were going to get this fight? And I mean, let's just say hypothetically that we got SawBlaze and Skorpios the way we were supposed to. I don't see how they get to each other easily.
They lock forks and then they just start swinging and do that a lot.
I would
nothing
think
happens.
so, or maybe JMO drives in reverse and becomes a vert, and then they become a vert. They can't because they can't pull it all the way back.
Nope.
I don't know how we.
It's just
how we
not
would
going to
pull
be a
that.
good fight anyway
No.
it goes. I am interested to know. So we all appeared on the Skorpios Builder blog this week, which
I got
was
this shirt on that episode.
You did. And they did the poll of what setup to go for.
So who went for what here? That's
Steve?
the thing.
Do we have to be? Do we have to
Yes.
say? All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
So
we do.
hands up if you went for the Saw, right? We went to was Saw one of them?
It
It was
it
Forkios or Swordios.
Oh, Forkios.
yeah.
Okay, so who went for Forkios?
I don't think I voted.
Who went for Skorpios?
Steve did. It's
I did.
Steve's
You did this,
fault.
Steve.
I don't know. I just have a strange feeling that they saw this fight and said, "Ha, I got one for you."
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it does make tactical sense because it has the reach to hit and snipe the weapon belts of
Yes.
SawBlaze, which
Yeah.
they do.
and
They managed to hit that area. It doesn't stop it, but they hit the area.
and Zach makes a good point lead up to this fight where the knuckle basically at the bottom of Skorpios's hammer saw is just so far out the front that's if JMO gets a really good shot, it's possible that they could hit it and do some serious damage. Not just for this fight, but going forward, they might have to scrap that whole weapon setup, considering the amount of damage they would take. So is this a conversation of limiting damage, to go forward, or it's it's just a fun fight, because they're a fun group. They wanted to bring back an old
I
old
love
bot.
the idea that this was just like a big middle finger to production for putting the hammer saw fight up.
It was.
But
It
at
was
the
a
same
bit.
time,
Yeah.
there was logic behind it. So
Yeah,
it was nice to see.
they made a good argument. They made a good argument going forward as to why they went this way. And one of their team members, I forget her name. I'm bad with names. She worked really hard to get the overkill blade attached to Skorpios, get a really sound configuration where it would it looks like it fits the bill. We haven't had a just a normal thwacking weapon on Skorpios probably since I guess probably
they had
since,
the scorpion tail.
the scorpion tail with the
flame
fire, but something without a kinetic punch.
Well, if you want to see a whack bot, of course, that is running at Destructathon.
Yeah, it may or may not have a blade similar to what you saw in this fight. Which was it a fight?
Not really.
They met,
really.
and then
It was
quick one.
turned over very quickly, and at that point, they're not self-writing. It's too like that. You're just
Yeah.
like, oh no.
Yeah.
I know JMO went in with his kind of hammer saw protection
He had
armor,
the bunny ears.
The bunny ears,
Yes.
I don't even know if he knew that Skorpios were just going to go in and just not use their hammer saw, because I don't know if
He
he
was semi-aware.
He was or he helped to do the draw of what setup they were going to use for the fight.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was all in on this in the end.
Yeah, and he really wanted that blade. So badly wanted that blade. Imagine that on your wall at home. Be like, that's also
It's a nice
history, but
memento,
also that's
yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
Jeff going into this fight, I mean, what's your take on the Hammersaw versus Hammersaw battle that we technically didn't get? Is this something we would like to see in the future? An actual fight, or is this just something the builders in general just don't want to see?
I think what was going to happen is they were going to get fork to fork, and they were going to get stuck, and no one would be able to hit each other. Then eventually someone will get to the back, and then the fight will be over.
Yeah, it'll be
because the Hammersaws don't have much. You don't have top armor in a Hammersaw. You're not ready. You're not designed to.
You're trying to work out the other team's problems with their top armor, not your own.
So you say that Skorpios team did have a thicker top armor on for this one.
They respected the Hammersaw, definitely. And maybe that's one reason to go for a weapon that doesn't, go for a more defensive setup, to take that weapon weight and, maybe go for a more defensive setup.
I would really have liked to have seen SawBlaze versus Skorpios, but with the saw blades on, just like proper saw fight.
I'm looking at the fight on my other screen right now, and the problem I've noticed is because the arm is so long, they kept wheeling, and that's what did them in.
Yeah.
If they had some type of
geometry,
if they had some type of wheelie bar with it, they would have been probably all right.
I think they were running magnets at the front, but almost that's not enough for what you wanted to do. I mean, they started trying to have the sword sort of pointed forwards so that they could just go, but it never happened for them.
I know
so you need something like this. You just need something like that, and you'll just
So the age-old question of, is SawBlaze beat Skorpios done? I mean, after that, it's
probably not, but
I'm
not sure it needed answering in the first place.
No, but there's still going to be people out there, that are thirsty to know the answer.
Well,
maybe
can, drink something else.
Oh well. So SawBlaze go through, and that's 3-0 SawBlaze, is it not? So SawBlaze has a chance to go 4-0, but their last fight is their last fight's against Hydra.
I know Jake was worried about this one.
Yes, definitely.
He was saying, "Oh, I can't wait to repair all the damage from SawBlaze." Oh,
yeah, it's not a great draw for Hydra, but I will say Hydra has proven in fights that it can just launch anybody up, and gravity is the best weapon that he has in his arsenal.
I mean, SawBlaze can do very little with their ground game if they're in the air. So
honestly, yeah, spend a minute in the air.
Be who has the best ground game, and that will probably be the fight from there.
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting to see what will happen.
Skorpios, meanwhile, we talked about.
Yeah, Skorpios got a frog boy in their future.
They should still be a low bracket. With their record so far.
Even if such a case where Ribbot,
the worst they can do is go 2-2.
Yeah, Ribbot wakes up and really becomes Ribbot of previous seasons and completely takes over the match, and then sends Skorpios to 2-2. I think they're still a lock of the bracket.
Yeah,
they should be okay.
Yeah.
So now we have a half answered question with this fight, but we will move on.
We know SawBlaze can be overkill. That's
all, and that's all we ever wanted answered, right?
Indeed, that was the main question in the first place, right?
There we go. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Next fight. Next fight is what happens if you put an owl in a brick oven.
You get pizza.
Yeah, you get owl flavored pizza. This was a massacre from the word. This was a beatdown.
I know that Anna said that they were worried about this fight, but honestly, what HiJinx hasn't done all that much recently for me, and I hate saying it, and we say this every week that HiJinx is on and HiJinx then doesn't perform, and it's such a shame to see it not doing the thing, but ultimately
they took a massive hit in this fight though, Jev, and that weapon is down immediately off of that.
Owls don't have faces anymore.
No, they lost their visor. That's true. It went up into the box, and I think it landed back on top, if I'm not mistaken. Briefly, this was brutal.
This was vintage pizza.
Yeah. Nice to see them show off their front plate, the calzone.
I'm looking at the fight over in the corner. Yeah, it literally just shoots up and lands right back on their head.
Yeah. I knew I caught that in the replay.
It's just like, what happened there?
For our YouTube viewers, you can see here the the prediction of not our names, in fact, but just pizza.
Yeah, and
everything was pizza after the lozenge incident.
Yes.
Well, this was their fight not too long after the endgame fight, and I mean, you're riding on a high. You beat arguably one of the best bots in the.
Have we talked about the?
We
intro?
haven't. I was going to say while we're on Ripperoni, the intro for this episode, the cold open.
Oh yeah! Oh my
delightful.
god! You gotta watch. Make sure there's no bolts in your pizza. It's nice to see. It's nice to see the cold opens come back.
It
in
honestly felt
some
like
little bit.
David was on editing for that one.
Yeah,
if you've watched any of the intros for Lego Wars,
in Ridge, after taking the piss out of the shelf previously, it was full on that.
Yeah,
it was incredible stuff. I
was very excited to see it because they weren't pitted too far from us. Like we were here, then they were like down the hallway a bit. Yeah. They're like four people down, but they were across, so you can see them all the time. Then we look over there at one point when we're repairing. We're like, are they filming it? Are they filming like a food show right now?
Right.
Then, like we can't hear anything because it's just no. Then all of a sudden we just hear like some bad Italian ba 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 ba. And they're like, oh no, what did they just say?
Oh god.
All I know is they were throwing dough and saying that things that don't go on pizza go on pizza.
The
dough,
spreading the dough.
Noises. It's just like, oh god.
If you ever been to you guys probably went when you guys were in Vegas, the Omega Mart.
Yes.
Oh,
it felt very listening to that was very Omega, like Meow Wolf Omega Marks skit.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it would be right in line with something that you would see at Area 15.
Are they after the sponsorship from Omega Mart at this point?
I'm in love with the editors this season.
Yeah.
Between this and Dubstep Mason. I mean, I don't know what they're on. I don't know what they're on, but I want some.
I think they found their footing. They know their demographic. They know, a lot of younger kids are going to watch this too, but adults who can get a chuckle out of it too. It's nice to see them really find their footing. I think we've been missing I don't want to say it's had too serious of an atmosphere over the past 2 seasons, where it's been very industrial, where it's been very competition focused.
Balance. I mean, we've had the
we need that. We totally need that. Yeah.
Cold open of Tantrum Hydra, which was super serious, but I think a really important way to start that episode. And I think we'll get something similar with Witch Doctor Minotaur later down the line. But I'm enjoying not having a cold open every week. We don't need it. But when we do get them, they're solid.
It hits.
Yeah.
They hit.
Yeah, they've been doing a very good job.
Just like how Ripperoni seriously hit HiJinx.
I think this goes to show we're talking more about the intro than we are this fight, because HiJinx did nothing and Ripperoni is pizza.
Yeah, it's very tough to watch. I mean, then again, it's also tough to watch when a 250-pound robot flies at your face and the box. It's especially because of your own doing.
Not if you're Aaron Hill.
Not if you're Aaron Hill. Anna and the team are not.
Oh, David did some research on this. We asked the question last week. Does Aaron Hill flinch in King of Bots when something from boxing champion... Oh no, when the head of Dragon King is punched into the box.
Goes
and the answer is...
No.
No, he doesn't
flinch.
Nope.
Ginger moves back a bit. Aaron doesn't move at all.
Yeah.
Absolute robot of a man.
Absolute unit.
He's a nice boy machine.
Yeah, I feel for HiJinx in this fight because, man, oh man, there's going to be a rebuild because it may or may not have the oven may or not have been HiJinx in this fight.
What does HiJinx do?
Don't catch on fire and don't.
That's a good start.
I mean, that's
going forwards. Like
that's a good setup. Yeah,
you're 0-3 on the season, and there doesn't seem to be anything that tracks over what has gone wrong. It's just lots of issues.
Yeah,
and they're building up, I guess.
I would hope that there's a way forward for a bot like HiJinx, even if it's not HiJinx in name. Another bot with a massive undercutter, retooled in such a way that it's a way to try to eliminate some of the weaknesses of the design. I mean, every bot has weaknesses, but it just seems that HiJinx show up more often than others. And I feel like I feel like we dog on this robot a lot.
I feel like we do, but also because it doesn't perform. I think it comes from a point of frustration for us that we
Yeah,
Disco Owl is a vibe that we really want to see do well.
Yeah, the
and
vibe is brilliant.
it's such a
but
pretty
it
machine.
it hasn't had that breakout performance still, has it?
Mm-hmm.
In year 3.
It reminds me of UK Beetleweight Do Ya in the it looks
Jevin, you just have to watch out
fantastic.
for the wall. You have to watch
Yeah,
out
it
for the
looks
wall.
fantastic, and yet the issues are many and hasn't won a fight in a long time. So
At least it's not
You'll
lost
get
anymore,
one.
so that's a start, right?
I currently know where the location of Do Ya is.
Oh dear. Well, yeah, Ripperoni won.
Yep.
HiJinx has
There
a
really
lot
isn't
more
much to talk about in
repairs.
this fight because
Next
it was just
fights.
one-way traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do
Ripperoni,
they have next?
we got fights. We have fights coming up. Big test for Ripperoni coming up. They got Copperhead.
Ooh.
gonna be a fun one.
I would like to see where one of these bots ends up in the ceiling.
Geometry wise, should be Copperhead.
You would
However,
think.
you can never gamble against the chaos that Ripperoni brings. So we
Honestly.
will have to wait and see.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Copperhead, you're another bot that's basically gunning for the top seed.
It's like,
You know?
you look at this on paper and go, it's a surefire matchup that Copperhead is going to beat Ripperoni. You know what else was surefire? The endgame is going to beat Ripperoni. And what happened? They lost.
I believe the line from Lindsay was "Embrace chaos," right?
Yes.
It was indeed embrace chaos.
Well, they better not
And
embrace
also,
Ripperoni's chaos.
Well, have
I'm
to
just
see what
throwing
happens.
back to the advert very quickly.
Yeah.
Did anybody else see the endgame team on the piece of pineapple they were just chopping up with a knife
Oh
like
yeah,
this?
yeah. They
Just
did
chopping
chop
up the endgame team.
the team.
So,
Jack
But-
and Nick just getting absolutely annihilated.
oof, rough.
We'll have to see what happens in that fight. Meanwhile,
yeah.
HiJinx.
HiJinx has Switchback. I think they might have a chance in this fight. I really do. I really do think that these are two bots that have had the not awesome seasons
Gremlins.
so far. You know, it's like still working things out.
Yeah.
And I think
Switchback
there's
still has its third fight to come in between all of
Yes.
that.
This is
So
true,
we'll see
yeah.
where
Switchback-
they sit.
yeah.
But
This is
yeah.
true for Switchback.
There's a chance for HiJinx in that fight, and let's face it, they need a win to get themselves back in the terms for getting into the bracket.
Yeah.
So
I mean, not only that, getting into terms of being a full competitor again. Because I can see.
I sure
if
hope
they
it doesn't
were-
come to that.
I really hope it doesn't either, but I can see a world in which they apply and just get in as a reserve.
yeah,
Because if you're a producer, you want a bot. You know, you want bots that go to the bell or really show off their hits, and like it's very tough when you spend so much time and pour so much money and pour so much energy into a bot, and it just hasn't done it. And I'm sick of having this conversation about HiJinx. It just makes me sick to my stomach. Where I want to see it do well, and I love the team. I love Orion, and Jen's a great thing for the sport. But it's just the bot is just not. It's just not cutting the mustard.
hasn't performed yet. No.
Yeah. Hopefully they get it figured out. I know they will.
Yeah.
There's a good group of people there. Okay.
Good.
So we're moving on.
I'm gonna go. I hope you're okay with that. I don't.
No,
oh,
Jevin,
no.
you're staying right here.
You
You're
gotta
stapled to
sit.
your chair.
Oh.
This is the Endgame Revenge Tour. This is after their fight with Pizza, and they are not having it.
This feels in the
I'm
same
watching it
class of
right
fight.
now.
The same
'Cause I-
class of
Yeah.
fight as Rotator versus Jackpot in these two robots fought in World Championship 5. Will there be a different outcome? No.
No, unfortunately. This is a much better Hypershock than the Endgame fought that time, but it really
But
didn't
it's also a
seem
much
it.
better end game, to be
Yeah,
fair.
it really didn't seem
Yeah.
it.
It did feel like there was one driving error from Will.
There
on
was
this
one moment where Hypershock got a hit in, and you're like, oh no. And it is just for the briefest of
hit
moments.
right into the corner.
Yeah,
I
I
will
lost its
say
front wheel and it was
Yeah.
done.
This is the weirdest knockout ever.
Yeah.
In that it's
When-
not up against a wall. It's not like upside down and inside something. No, it just stops on its side.
Yeah. Very similar to where Riptide died last year in their season-ending fight, where they just end up on their side, and that's the end.
Well, it's that rarity of flipping a coin and it landing just on its side.
Yeah. And it's interesting that it's because the sort of rear right wheel doesn't turn anymore, and it's just there.
The chain falls off. I just
Yeah.
noticed. I just watched the
Gives
chain
up.
fall off of it.
Yeah.
And this is another instance where Hypershock it's almost like they should start upside down. I feel like his bot ends up upside down more than it's on its wheels.
I feel
Well,
like
you say that the upside down shot that they did get on Endgame ejected a wheel, so
It wasn't
that may have
their
been
wheel
damaged
though.
beforehand.
it was their wheel.
I mean, it
literally-
wasn't Endgame's wheel.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Endgame. They come into each other. It's not even that Endgame hits the wheel. They don't.
No,
It's just the shock goes through Hypershock and just goes. Well, I don't want that anymore.
I'm free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an amazing transfer of energy. And Hypershock. I really don't know what else they could have done in this fight. I mean, Endgame has this. I mean, we saw it in there's a bit put up by Pete, the bot whisperer, on the BattleBots YouTube channel. Go watch it. Where
Go watch Pete.
Endgame has forks for every occasion. There is just about nothing you can do to out fork them. Basically, they've become more Bite Force than Bite Force was with that fork setup. Where no matter what you run, you're not getting under them on the front. You have to get around
repeat
the
the baton. And
I really
ran with
like
it.
the sort of piano key setup that I'm going to call the sort of. It's the hybrid wedge in that it's wedge shaped, but it's made out of lots of little keys that can just sort of do that across the arena floor, so that it never gets stuck at one particular point. It's a really cool design.
I just rewatching. I noticed coming out of the box or in the first start of the match, you just see all of the paint in the red square. Just come
Oh
up.
yeah,
It's completely peeled off.
It's not exactly the. I mean, you don't need robot planers, really. You just put Endgame in there.
I mean,
if you ever
that's
need to
terrible
scrape the floor.
continuity, for like any fight afterwards, that they just notice a massive chunk of paint missing.
Yeah, that's for those of you playing at home, keeping track of the damage in the arena, and you can put the schedule back together.
Yeah,
Good luck with that.
You can still see the huge hit.
I'm trying to work out
from earlier.
when this fight happened.
Okay,
It was
so
on top of
Oh, this
Friday.
was after the Cobalt Minotaur main event.
Okay.
Literally the next fight.
so,
You were saying, Jeff?
Looks like Endgame actually hit the wheel when he was coming at it upside down.
Oh,
He
he
did.
does. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
So it looks like Hypershock hits his fork and pops up, at a weird angle. Then Endgame gets a hit on the wheel.
Just a massive transfer of power, and just proving once again that Endgame is a force to be reckoned with. I think it's not exactly a bad thing that they had a fight against Ripperoni that didn't go to plan, and they basically forked themselves, for lack of a better term. In any case, I really think maybe that was a good growing moment, for the team, because I feel like you ride on a high for so long, and it's kind of not a bad thing for somebody to cut you back down. Or like if I'll make a sports analogy where you have a team that just wins and wins and wins, but like right before the playoffs, they have a really stunning loss, and they're like, okay, as long as that didn't happen in the playoffs, we know what to do going forward now, because we'll never make that mistake again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the coach in me maybe coming out.
All things considered, I think this was a better fight than the last time these two robots fought.
Agreed. Yes. Well, the thing is, it was an odd year, for Hypershock, was it not?
It still is.
So I mean, they were never going to win anyway.
They've Jevoned it.
They absolutely Jevoned that.
So is that a common theory? Because I've noticed that every other year Hypershock has a good robot.
I have been blamed for this, Jeff.
Well,
Okay.
It's called the Jevon curse.
Yeah, Will brought it up, and he said it's basically the effect of from what he's gathered. It's the effect of they do good one year, then they get thrown the book at them, and then they do bad, and then they rebound the following year because their schedule gets easier, and then they do good again, and then it's just a repeating process.
Yo-yoing, isn't it? Yeah.
That's just an unfortunate reality, I guess, of being Hypershock.
But 1 and 2 Hypershock is okay, I think. And 1 and 2 against the caliber of machines that Hypershock has lost to.
Oh my!
SawBlaze and Endgame. I wouldn't be sad at losing to those two bots.
No. I will say, with how tough their schedule's been, we talked about it. I think we talked about it. Or maybe we talked about it with Will, where like his quote unquote easy fight is Claw Viper, and that's next for him.
Yep.
So
That's gonna be a very fast fight.
It really is.
Oh, it's gonna be a
the
drag
two
race
speed
for sure.
demons, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Not like time wise, but like the robots themselves.
Yes, absolutely. So get your driving practice down. Maybe hug the driving bolt that he won back in 2016.
Give it
close
a
to your
good luck
heart.
kiss before
Give it,
going out.
absolutely, and then maybe Kevin has an off day and doesn't do what he did with Ribbot with you. I will say that Hypershock's a little bit longer in the frame, so there's more to grab. But it's
and Claw Viper likes grabbing verts.
Yeah, I was very nervous going into this fight for Hypershock, but it only takes
you were
one
nervous.
hit. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
yes.
let's say this: if Hypershock goes 1-3, I mean, they may make the bracket. I think they'll make the bracket. They won
With
the
their
Remars
strength
event.
of schedule.
They
I think
have strength of
so.
schedule, winning Remars. They're in. Just to get a win.
You can't have the season without Hypershock.
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think it's kind of hard to see BattleBots without them.
And let's put it this way: if Ribbot gets in, if it wins its next fight,
yeah, even if it doesn't,
and that's a big if,
yeah.
Then Hypershock, who's had I would say a stronger strength of schedule, sure gets in, right? With 1-3, if they go 1-3.
Yeah.
But they might go 2-2.
The many ifs and maybes, right?
Yeah, it's a tricky question to answer.
Nick maybe featuring on this week's talk with Pete Abramson in the pits of BattleBots. Go and check it out on YouTube. Please watch Pete. Watch him now.
Yes,
we love
please.
Pete.
We need more Pete.
Pete, you better know that call's coming through when the top 32 bracket is released.
We will be after you again.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Nick Maybe and Endgame, their season ends.
Nice.
Their season ends against Gigabyte.
So should be all right.
I think they'll be okay. Gigabyte has had trouble in the past with verts. One of the most highlighted fights is Hypershock. They've had, the Copperhead fight, and like they tend to have more trouble against verts than they do against other horizontals. I'm sure the comments can tell me if I'm wrong. But it should be a good chance for Endgame to end up 3-1 to end their season, end up with a solid seed, going into the bracket on a high. Unless Gigabyte does something and shakes the whole tournament up and ends up with putting Endgame 2-2, and then who knows where they end up in the bracket. I mean, they make the bracket, but Gigabyte gonna try to play spoiler, but that's not their next fight.
No.
Gigabyte does have a fight before then, so we'll see how that goes. But with that, we've reached the end of the episode. So
we have got a few more questions, haven't we?
Yes, we do. And then I believe the next slide will be
probably the next fight.
Future fights, yes. So do we want to do that first?
Let's do future fight first.
Let's do future fight first. Okay, so for Jackpot coming up, how do you fancy flipping an America colored coin?
It's what's nice about this is I don't have to worry about setup crap. Like I know what to do. Honestly, Jackpot's the best when it's on with the Hazard Wedge.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably like, if you look at all our best fights, it's when we have the big wedge on it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of squares up with everything, makes the weapon a little bit more smaller, makes it more like the meta 4-wheel drive vert.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we're just gonna put the big old wedge on it and just hope for the best.
I think that's all you can do against Shredderator, because I said earlier in the episode that I've been watching some of the old seasons back, and Shred's a tough bot.
It hits surprisingly hard.
It can really hit. It just needs to keep its teeth. I don't know what Brian has to do.
So the problem is that the shell has been repaired and repaired and repaired and repaired.
The patches and everything.
It's still the same shell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure it's expensive to get that remachined. I mean, I'm sure money's not growing on a tree.
Yeah. But
we'll
see how that goes in the last fight.
Yeah, and hopefully ending your season on a win, or maybe Shredderator gets you.
I feel like 2-2, we can definitely go in.
Yeah, were you worried that if you lost this fight that 1-3 wouldn't be enough to get you in?
Yes, because Shredderator is kind of our bottom fight.
Yeah.
If you lose your bottom fight, more.
Yeah, it's got heavier weight.
It's got heavier weight on you than losing your big fight.
Yeah.
Which is weird because if I win this one, I would have won my big fight and my little fight, but not the
not the ones on your level, so it averages out,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you up against Captain Shredderator, and we'll hope it'll be a good fight, good knockout fight. We'll see.
Oh yeah.
Wish Brian the best, but we do have a little bit of a, we want him to win too, because he's here.
Yeah.
But going forward, we do have a couple of questions for you specific to Destructathon.
Yeah, do
Okay.
you want to talk about, so you're currently working at Destructathon, is that right?
Yes, so my daily schedule is I wake up at 4:30 a.m. and I go to my main job, which is plumbing and pipe fitting.
Mhm.
So that starts at 6. So I'll work from 6 to 2:30. Then I will leave from there and work so I clock in as soon as I get there to BattleBots. So I clock in, then I'll be there until roughly 8 p.m. every night.
Imagine clocking into BattleBots. What a life.
Privilege,
It's
right?
taken over. It's taken over. It's like it was more of my life, then now it's even more so.
You
It's
could
a
always
very-
say robots of right?
It's very funny getting a paycheck from Giant Nut Productions.
How do you bring that to the bank and they don't laugh? You're like, wait a
Oh,
minute.
that's brilliant.
This is
What
business
business
bullshit.
are you
Right.
in?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Especially because it's in Vegas.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, we run. I run a strip show for Giant Nut Productions.
They just nod and say yes,
Yes,
everything
yes,
is fine.
Yeah, whatever happens in Vegas.
Yeah. There we
No,
go.
so I'm more just I'm more of a like. So I'll make sure like some of the interns and stuff, because we have a lot of the film interns because they're there learning cameras and stuff, but when they're not doing the camera stuff, they're wrenching on robots.
Yeah.
So we kind of have a who's who of like people coming in and rotating, but we also have so I'll be there kind of like 5 days out of the week. Then Brad is there full time from Triton, so he's kind of like the reason I didn't do it full time is plumbing treats me too well.
Yeah.
Plumbing,
That's the bread bringer.
It's exactly it's like it's one of those ones that like not to get too into it. It's like if they wanted to do it full time, they wouldn't be able to profit.
Yeah.
It's paying me that, so just paying me as like an intern is not bad. It's just going in there and doing stuff, and the perks is I get to work on that there. So
It's a cool
I
thing to
get
put
the-
on your CV. I'll be honest.
Exactly.
I mean, I wouldn't knock it. Now I will
I
say
would love
that
to have that sort of thing.
honestly,
Oh, definitely.
so I know that we've talked about teams being there, and I know that we've had a couple pictures pop up online of certain robots showing up.
Well, it was opening weekend last weekend, wasn't it? They
Yeah.
did the official grand opening of
yeah,
the
it was a grand
thing.
opening, and they Hydra was there.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
we have
Hydra's
seen.
there. Hydra versus Overkill, and Overkill is the lightest of all the live show robots. So it was
Bye.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
Still up there.
We're
it was
still
having
looking
some
for it.
airmail. Yeah,
Yep.
it hopefully you got certified. I will say the next question that we had from a user Typhoon on Discord is, since we've seen guests, Jackpot and Destructathon when?
It kind of lives there. It's one of the display robots for now.
Okay.
It's here because I'm working on it.
Yeah, I was
Good.
gonna say he's been ghosting you the whole time.
Yeah. So it's here right now because
Keeping you in line.
it's one of those like we don't have the full test box, so to unload it and load it, and you'd have to test everything. You got to load it into the big arena. And
Yeah.
that's a hassle, especially if you're tuning electronics.
Oh my god, yeah, absolutely.
So it's just nice to be like I can do it here because it's not on property. Take it out, put it into like a parking lot, park it in the corner,
Mhm.
spin it up. Okay, that's good. Turn it off, reprogram it, spin it back. It's not load it, take it out of the box, put it back in, and it's gonna be different now because I got the Bluetooth stuff for it now for VISC, so I can fine tune it now. But yeah,
Yes,
it's kind of
that is a
where it
perk
is.
of being close to the event,
Yeah.
and having a live show going. That's one of the things of this and that's really the goal of Destructathon. I think it's nice to have butts in seats and pulling some extra dough to
we spoke
the
previously
upkeep.
about how there weren't enough heavyweight live shows in the
Right.
US. There's 2 in the UK, and the UK is not a big place, but
Mhm.
the amount of robots there are in the UK is probably more in a tightly packed area, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, we spoke previously about there not being enough live shows. Now there's this, as well as Make a Fair and all that sort of thing.
And we also have a
Yeah, the
Robo Games.
Robo
Yeah,
Games
Back
coming
next
back.
month, isn't it? It's coming
Yeah.
around soon.
I'm
So, yeah.
still on the fence if I'm going to Robo Games or not.
Tentative.
kind of-
Ooh.
It's one of those things of like, why would I go when I can test here?
Mhm.
Yeah, but there's less incentive for you when you know you've got the BattleBots nearby.
Yeah.
Exactly. And with the whole Proving Grounds coming up, which is a thing that's happened really soon, actually.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
we-
that's going to be really exciting to see.
BattleBots
some of the
Proving
robots trying
Grounds
to-
will be. It's supposed to be March, but I don't know if it's going to be a little bit later. But it'd be like one of those things of you. Once the site is up, you apply, say, "Hey, I want to book out for these weekends," and they give you a little bit of money just to compensate your travels and stuff like that. It's not a whole lot, but it's enough.
Yeah.
Like it's enough to cover a hotel.
Yeah.
Because it's not negative money like when you go to like Robo
Right.
Games. Because Robo Games, you're going there and you're paying an entry fee.
Oh yeah. Plus
With
room and
this-
board and food and
Uh-huh.
all that stuff.
So they'll probably give you like a little bit of money and probably like a really good block rate at the Tuscany.
there you go.
So
And
yeah,
that's-
come out and they'll book it out. So they'll say like, I don't know, they'll like book in like 4 rookie robots. Then they'll tell them, hey, the fights are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you might just see it's like who do you want to fight and what night, and do you have enough to do every night, or do you have enough parts for one night? Because I think you get paid per fight.
Yeah.
So there's more incentive, and I think you get a little bit extra if you win too. We haven't figured out the numbers yet. It's because that's just asking people like, oh, what would you do if you were a rookie?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
they might do something different for veterans. Like they might have a different fight come up. Like I keep talking with Derek. Me and Derek might want to do a Gigabyte versus Jackpot sometime in the summer.
Mm-hmm. Would be
Which
cool
would
to
be
test it.
That'd be a hell of a fight.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I'm looking forward to seeing some of these new bots. I know that like I've thumbed through the BattleBots wiki on fandom, and I've seen a couple bots that have been featured in Destructathon that have been sprinkled throughout. There's a robot from Rick Russ who was going to bring Swamp Thing this year. I
Yeah,
believe.
jet lag.
Yeah, jet
Yes.
lag. It's got a jet engine.
it's-
It's
okay.
awesome.
So our honest opinion of it is really cool, and that's about it.
Yeah, but that's awesome. I don't
It's
care.
no,
it
it's
got to
like-
start somewhere. I mean, what we had Hotshot at NHRL.
Yeah.
Like, it's a cool idea to put
Yeah,
a jet engine on a robot.
I like it. It's like they did a whole like expo of it. I'm like, oh wow, that was really cool. Anyways,
Yeah. Oh well.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, they'll
It's-
think tank it.
it definitely because Rick only helped. It was the other guy's first heavyweight, so it has the first heavyweight stuff to it.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't have the invertibility. It has a weird clutch system.
Mhm.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's definitely a really cool showcase item, but
It definitely
I
has the shiny
wouldn't-
object deal.
I
you know?
wouldn't see
Cool.
it. Like I wouldn't see it like fighting.
It was a cool, but it's a cool live show robot because it's like, oh,
It's
look at this.
very cool.
It'll pull in eyes. You know what I mean?
People.
Might pull out eyes.
Possibly. So speaking more about the bots themselves, I guess Jevin, you could take the next question.
Yeah, Chaotic Robotics on Discord asks, how long does it take to typically repair the show bots used in Destructathon?
Given that
It
there's
all-
5 of each.
Okay, so there's 5 of each. Typically, we try to have 2 ready for each day. So you reel it out and go, oh, this one has something weird going on. Like, oh, hey, we didn't check. There's a tire flat or something like that. Okay, go get the other one. So we re-prepare 2 and get them ready. So then you just get the second one out there and just do it really quick. Then like build wire, we'll like do a little film segment while we're swapping the robots out.
Hmm.
So we could have up to 5, but typically we don't have more than 2, just because it's a lot of effort keeping heavyweights going full time every night.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Completely understandable.
Some take more damage than others. It all depends who they're fighting.
Mhm.
Like the schedule right now, it changes it changes weekly.
Mhm.
Sometimes it also depends on who we have ready. So usually it opens up with Tazbot versus Kraken, which is always a really good fight.
Yeah.
Because it's swinging around and denting the crap out of the head, and there's a lot of weird bits that Kraken can grab on Tazbot, so it's really fun.
Including the little mini bot, which I didn't notice at first was a separate machine from the 4-wheel Tazbot. Give it a little 2-wheel bot that just kind of disconnects and goes and does its thing.
Mm-hmm. It's very funny too because it's powered by dual mesh. It's kind of safe. So like they'll power off all the older robots, then he'll go to Trey will go over to tower up the mini bot, and the mini bot will start running away from him. So Trey will spend like 30-40 seconds chasing this mini bot around the arena. Then eventually the mini bot will get stuck, then he'll go grab it.
Oh my god.
It's a very fun segment. Then then second fight is usually, if I'm thinking the right order, it's Malice versus Overkill right now.
Yeah.
Which is very good. There's a big old wedgie boy versus Malice. It's always pretty good. Sometimes Malice gets because Malice doesn't have the anti-thing device in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So Overkill will spend the whole time trying to get it up on its butt.
Yeah.
And win that way while Malice tries to de-wheel it. It's very fun. Then third fight is one I'm involved in. So every day we wheel out. So we bolt Ginsu onto a slot machine.
Yes.
So we have this really cool slot machine, and we wheel it out. And Bill goes, "I'm gonna beat the crap out of this for everyone." Then we stop Bill. Then forget the other guy's name, the other announcer. He goes, "I know someone that will do a much better job than you, Bill." Then he produces Nightmare. The Nightmare comes out, and he does a really cool spiel like, "This is for everyone who's ever lost a dime in this city." It's very, very big hype package. It's very cool. Then third fight, usually it used to be Chopper versus Malice, but now it's Chopper versus Whiplash, which is also a really fun fight because they have all the movie bits.
Mm-hmm.
Then Chopper has a really cool like wrestling heel captain.
Mm-hmm.
Like here's our next spot. Hey, you are not worthy of introducing our robot. And they come out and they start shitting on everyone, and the fans start booing them, and it's really great. Then Whiplash comes out and they're all clean cut, face character. So it's kind of like your heel versus face.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like your Stone Cold versus your John Cena type.
Which is interesting because I've always seen, whenever I've had a conversation with somebody when I'm trying to explain, not just explain robot combat, but also kind of explain the differences between Robot Wars and BattleBots. I see Robot Wars as more WWE and Raw or WCW. I see BattleBots as more of a boxing event, because I think it is kind of presented that way, where it's interesting to see a kind of blend of styles now, where you kind of have you have characters behind the bots, and I was curious to see how they were gonna handle not having the teams, running the bots, having others run the bots. So it's good to see that. Like, I mean, we got buy-in from everybody, so that's
honestly a lot of the captains are very viable. Like they honestly, like they represent the bots better than some of the captains do. It's very funny.
Ooh, shots fired.
Yeah, it's not in a bad way, but like they're professional.
I'm just teasing.
Like these guys are actual actors. Like, how we're robot people. We're awkward,
we're all right.
Yes.
Yeah. We can be very awkward. I'm
actually a paid actor as well. The real captain of my robots.
Yeah. Your check's in the mail, Jen, by the way.
Died in a fire.
There you go.
The main event is always Hypershock versus Witch Doctor, which is always a banger fight. But the people that do captain for Hypershock are very like energetic. They very capture the vibe of Hypershock scene. Like he'll come out and he'll like run over, then like the co-cap and like he'll freak out, he'll like collapse out of like excitement. Then they run over with like a little thing and catch him back alive. He jumps up and runs into the crowd. It's very, very Will energy.
Yeah. And that's the deal. That's Will, you know, just having fun and looking fun doing it. Looking good doing it. I will say with all the bots that we've kind of gone over here too. David, can you take the next question where it kind of leads in because you've discussed the fights, but now I'm kind of curious of your take on this.
Hang on. So, of the modern classic robots that have been adapted to current competition, which is the one that's performed best? That was brought by Skorpios on Discord.
Let's see. It's hard because like sometimes they have them fight fight each other every night, right?
Yeah.
I would say like there's some that are like like Kraken's not going to total a robot because it's a crusher, right?
Right.
But there's a Witch Doctor hits pretty hard. I'd say the hardest hitting one is probably Diablo.
I would say so.
Diablo hits
I've seen some
hard.
videos.
I think we've seen the same
one that
footage
bounced
of
around.
lights being
Honestly,
broken.
Diablo feels like a robot. If they managed to get the weight down for actual BattleBots and reinforced it and made it sort of fully battle hardened, ready for a season, I think they could do well.
Diablo would need a major rework to be a full combat heroic because it's 360 pounds.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's the thing with no weight limit.
Let him in.
Oh well,
but yeah, no, I really like.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Yep.
I really want to see a Lego Diablo at some point.
Yeah, I mean Diablo was.
Come at the track.
Have fun with that one.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll take the last one.
You take the last, yeah.
Yeah. So Shiken on Discord says, I don't know if this is kind of like I don't know if this question's morbid or like just like when the season's over, what happens to the show bots for the Destructathon? Like what'll happen to them? I mean, do they just kind of
What do you mean?
I imagine they'll be on display, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. The question states what will happen to the show bots after Destructathon.
That is a solid question. I don't know. I know they are owned by the company. Like they're not owned by like they bought them.
Yeah.
They basically commissioned all the robots, so they own them. It's theirs. So eventually we're moving to a warehouse. So do all the because right now we're working next to the arena. And that's eventually going to turn into more of a fan area and all that. Then we're going to have an off-site workshop.
Okay.
So I know they have the arena for at least 3 years. 3 years we have it for. So, but shows are only booked out until end of May, like scheduled on Ticketmaster. So we're kind of working it out. We still haven't even got all the robots yet, too. So
yeah,
we have more robots coming. So
yeah. I'm just curious to see what the off season would look like for these robots. Like where do they go? Because there's so many of them.
I don't think there is an off season. Like the only time there would be there's probably going to be downtime during Formula One, obviously.
Sure.
But it would be fun. Like just this race has been a bit crap. Let's just watch some BattleBots instead. Mid Grand Prix.
I think that's going to be the main perk of working at BattleBots is we'll just get there with a scissor lift. And just watch Formula One.
I mean, it's free tickets, right?
Honestly, you're right next door.
I think turn 4 or 5.
Yeah, because I think tickets right now are running like $1,100 to $1,500 for general admission. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a good chunk of our tickets overall for BattleBots.
Yeah, I will say that when I went out to go see BattleBots, I had a hope that maybe I could get to go see at least pass by T-Mobile Arena because I wanted to go see a Golden Knights game, but then when schedules happen, I'm like, that's so far from my mind at this point. I'll just pass by the arena and say, hey, I'll see you next time, maybe.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. If I'm lucky, I don't know. But yeah, I think that's wrapped it up all right nicely. So we've reached the end of the episode. Thank you so much, Jeff, for your time. It's been lovely talking to you. I wish you the best of luck throughout the rest of the season. And it's always good to have a hometown boy on the podcast. It's good to represent the home crowd, because I think I'd like to think that the crowd cheered for you more when you came out because it was the hometown boy.
I feel we noticed a lot more.
As soon as they said Las Vegas, everyone was like, ah!
Yeah.
The biggest one was one of the. It's later on.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Saturday night, and we come out, and everyone's just going. "Rah!" It's Saturday night, and everyone's
it's the busy session. The stands are full.
Session. Like they're like elbow to elbow. It's like there's no room. Then they mentioned a whole lot of it. Actually, one of the ones was last season. I forget what fight it was, but when Farouk does the whole, you're Circus, he's Bellagio, you're Vegas, I said, he's Vegas, you're Reno, and everyone has fucking died.
Yeah.
The whole being
brilliant.
being from the area, I would know. I guess that would be the North Jersey, South Jersey argument for me,
Yeah.
But in any case, lovely talking to you, and we wish you the best of luck for the upcoming season, the upcoming parts of the season.
Definitely.
So, with that said, I've been Steve the American Killjoy.
I've been Walter Woodrow.
I've been Samuel Hayes. Oh wait, that's not right. I've been DavidofSmeg.
And I'm Jeff Waters.
And at least Jevin and I, and perhaps David next week. We should have Sam back.
A combination of us will be back.
Yeah,
next week,
a combination maybe back.
Maybe we'll just swap Jeff Waters in as a regular.
Honestly,
yeah.
In any case, we'll see you all for the next one. Bye for now.